route. Vincenzo's eyes, scanning the road as each car drives past, tell their own story. On my final morning in Vibo Valencia, I returned to the hilltop with Pietro Comito. A walking advertisement for the Calabrian good life. He says it is safer than Milan, Rome, London.
La terra è mamma.
This is my motherland. I can feel the bond so deeply. They say that when you come to the south, you cry 2 times. First when you arrive, because you are afraid of all the bad things that might happen to you. And then you cry the second time when you leave, because you feel such a tenderness towards the place. And that's how I feel. People suffer here, but I know that this land can become even more beautiful.
That was Assignment, presented by me, Francisco Garcia, and produced by Anne Adine.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. In the city this morning, it is 8 degrees. Our high today is 24, and we're going to have lots of sunshine, so it's going to be really warm. Thanks to everyone who was filling in for me as I was sick for quite a while. Lost my voice for a while. Probably still sounds a little strange, I suspect. It is clear in Winnipeg this morning. Not everywhere in the province, though. In Lynn Lake this morning, it's raining, light rain, and it is 8 degrees. But as mentioned here in Winnipeg, also 8 degrees. Good morning, Corey Funk, directing the show. We'll be covering the commute. Good morning, Abby Adiyemi, behind the controls. Abby will be covering the forecast. And good morning to Brad Lilly's also behind the glass. At 3 minutes to 6 o'clock, Heather Wells is here with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, protesters who set up camp at the University of Manitoba say they will continue their advocacy for Gaza even after their encampment ends. That 3-day demonstration at the U of M quad is set to wrap up later today. And Manitobans are being warned to guard against a recreational drug combination that has killed 18 people this year. Jeff Elder at the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network says he's lost friends to that extremely potent designer drug known as DAG. It's benzodiazepine, and it is resistant to naloxone, as we told you first yesterday. We're going to hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Coming up in the second hour of the program, we have quite a lot of conversations coming up. First of all, the brothers Landreth are bringing their Let It Lie 10th anniversary tour home tonight after touring across North America and the UK. So Dave and Joey Landreth will be live in studio to celebrate their homecoming show. So that'll be exciting. In addition, we'll have a full interview about that designer drug that Heather just mentioned that is contributing to the crisis in drug deaths in this province. So stay tuned for that. And after 8 o'clock on the program, are other provinces getting ahead of Manitoba in their bid for new sources of clean energy? We'll ask the Premier that during our monthly interview. In addition, the Premier recently said the new cancer care facility will be built with money from a settlement from Big Tobacco, but did he speak too soon? We're going to ask him. That's coming up a little later in our monthly interview. And in the first hour of the program, we are going to check in on what's been happening in St. Boniface as residents are continuing their fight for Happyland Pool. So we'll have the latest chapter in that. Stay tuned. World Report, though, is next.
And the Grammy goes to Leve!
Leve sings music inspired by Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald, but when you look into her audience, it's full of young people. In fact, she's been called someone responsible for bringing jazz to Gen Z. How does she do it? Leve will be here to tell you. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A committee of MPs is studying anti-Semitism on Canadian campuses this morning. They will hear from university students who say their schools have failed to provide safe environments. As Rafi Boudjikanian tells us, the students say it's been a problem since last October when the war between Israel and Hamas began.
And what we're seeing on campuses is that our rights are not being upkept.
Nadi Pressman is with the Canadian Union of Jewish Students at Queen's University. It's one of 3 schools named in a class action lawsuit by some Jewish students accusing the universities of failing to protect them from what they call anti-Semitic acts.
My friends who used to wear kippot on campus, instead now wear baseball caps.
Pressman is one of many students who will appear before a Commons Justice Committee this morning, which is looking into anti-Jewish hatred at universities. At a news conference previewing their appearance, students spoke about swastikas displayed on campus and pro-Palestinian encampments that have popped up at universities such as McGill.
There is no place that right now is more difficult to be a Jewish Canadian than on university campuses across the country.
Anthony Housefather is the Liberal MP who kickstarted the study.
We can exercise moral suasion. I think we can make recommendations as a Justice Committee to universities.
MPs are planning to hear from universities and police over the next couple of weeks. They will also look into rising Islamophobia on campus. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Smoke is rising over Rafah. AFP journalists reported heavy shelling there early this morning. In other parts of the southern Gaza City, Palestinians are burying their dead. This man says no place in Rafah is safe. He says the Israeli military targets everywhere. Rafah is on the Egyptian border. About 1.4 million Palestinians are sheltering there. And this morning, it seems Israel is taking a warning from U.S. President Joe Biden seriously. Biden said if the IDF invades Rafah, the United States will not provide the weapons. And this morning, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations said if Biden follows through on that threat, it would significantly impair Israel's ability to fight Hamas. Russia is celebrating Victory Day today. Moscow's Red Square held the annual military parade. The event marks victory over Nazi Germany.
Сегодня мы видим, как правду о Второй мировой войне пытаются исказить.
In a speech, President Vladimir Putin said the West is diminishing the Soviet Union's role in the Second World War. Russia's war in Ukraine began more than 2 years ago, and Putin admitted to the crowd that Russia is living through a difficult period. He says he will do everything to avoid global confrontation. Stormy Daniels is scheduled to be back on the witness stand today in New York. The adult film star has been testifying at Donald Trump's hush money trial. Daniels went into great detail on Tuesday about her alleged sexual encounter with the former president and the money she says she was paid for her silence. Her day on the stand today is expected to begin with questioning from Trump's lawyers. Grieving members of a Toronto family are wondering why they never got a call when their father died. They say nobody reached out to them as next of kin after he died of natural causes. But instead, they learned about his death when they tried to visit their father and found police had sealed the door. Angelina King has their story.
This is my favorite picture of him.
That is the best one.
Siblings Christine and James Taylor flip through photos of their dad, Douglas, reminiscing about his empathy and haunted by how his body waited, unclaimed in a morgue for 11 days because Toronto police didn't tell them Douglas had died.
It's just a disrespect to him.
A police report shows officers had James and Christine listed as next of kin along with their cell phone numbers. Officers searched those numbers on internal databases and an online business directory, but then it appears they stopped trying to find them and never even called.
It's just incredibly unfair.
The family learned Douglas died when James went to check on him. He found his apartment door with a police seal on it.
This is wrong.
Former Toronto Mayor John Sewell is now a coordinator of the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition. He says even the lack of a phone call from police is troubling.
I mean, come on, we've got to have better behavior from the police when somebody's died.
The Taylors sent police a letter saying they could pursue legal action. Because of that, the service says it can't comment. The family sent the same letter to Wood Green Community Services, which runs the apartment where Douglas died, because the police report says officers tried to find next of kin information, but the office file was empty. Wood Green says its files are electronic and provided the info before officers left the building. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
British Columbia's Premier David Eby says his province has identified multiple sophisticated cybersecurity incidents involving government networks. But so far, he says, it appears no sensitive information has been compromised. Investigators are still trying to determine exactly what information could have been accessed. And Eby says the government will provide updates and be as transparent as it can be throughout the process. Last week, all provincial employees got an email ordering them to immediately changed their passwords. Ottawa is hosting the first ever Air Accessibility Summit today. CBC News has reported on numerous incidents involving passengers with disabilities and airlines. As Olivia Stefanovic reports, the goal of the meeting is to find short and long-term solutions.
I would like to know that my wheelchair will come off of the plane in one piece.
Every time Spring Hawes boards an airplane, the BC Disability Advocate says she expects something to go wrong.
Whether it's a small thing like being treated with, disrespect, or a big thing like having my chair broken or being...
Hawes says she's experienced it all multiple times, and she's far from alone.
Airlines not only need to do and be held accountable, they actually need to do a lot better.
Kamal Kara is the Federal Minister of Persons with Disabilities. She and Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez are bringing airline representatives and disability advocates together in Ottawa today for the first summit of its kind.
To really have frank discussions about what we can do.
We're looking for concrete actions after this.
If the airlines don't follow through, Rodriguez says the federal government is considering consequences.
There can be all kinds of ways to doing it. There could be penalties.
John Graddick teaches aviation management at McGill University. He says he'd rather see the airlines forced to publicly report how they handle incidents involving passengers with disabilities.
The whole point is to change the airline's behavior, not to pay money.
The ministers are expected to unveil more details after the summit, but the first step is to start a conversation many call long overdue. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Toronto police say they were called to Drake's Bridle Path mansion again yesterday. Someone tried to gain access to the property. They say that person was apprehended under the Mental Health Act. Police are still asking for the public to come forward with information about a shooting near Drake's house on Tuesday. Italy is preparing to deploy almost 200 soldiers across the country. They are not defending its borders. They are hunting wild boar. The country's $12 billion prosciutto and sausage industry is in danger. Megan Williams tells us more from Rome.
They devour vineyards, feast on urban food waste, and even leap on people in swimming pools. Cinghiali, or wild boars, more than 1 million of them roaming Italy due to shrinking habitat and strict limits on hunting. Now, more worrisome, they've become super spreaders of African swine fever. The highly contagious virus doesn't harm humans, but has killed more than half the world's pig population.
Prosciutto di Parma.
And that poses a major problem to a country renowned for pork products like prosciutto.
Non ha visto grandi soluzioni negli anni passati.
Which is why Agricultural Minister Francesco Lollobrigida introduced a decree this week to send 177 soldiers to hunt the boars, aiming to reduce the population by 80%. The northern region of Lombardia has already called more than 30,000 pigs to stop the virus spread. And Parma is being hit by foreign import bans on its prosciutto. In April, Canada became the latest country to stop some of the products coming in. Pork producers here welcome the army offensive, but critics say the government is opting for a high-profile populist approach to the problem to cover up for the fact that it failed to act sooner by helping farmers erect fences. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. Beautiful sky out there this morning. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Nice to be back with you. Thanks to Emily Brass and to Faith Flundell and to Corey Funk. People all filling in for me in the last week while I've been ill. This morning on the show in this hour, the bid to keep Happyland Pool has fallen short. The bid to keep it open, even after raising $75,000 from communities. So we'll have a bit of an update on that story. And speaking of keeping kids active, there's a new report card that grades Canadian children and teens on their exercise levels. And unfortunately, they're in the D range. We're going to talk to one of the researchers about those results. And also this hour, still talking about kids, we'll talk to a representative from Save the Children and find out about the renewed fears for the Palestinians who've been sheltering in Rafah. You've just heard the latest on World Report about what's happening there. Stay tuned. With other headlines, Heather Wells is here now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the head of an anti-smoking group is applauding Manitoba's premier for speaking about a possible settlement with tobacco companies. Cynthia Callard at Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada says lawsuits filed by all 10 provinces have been ongoing for years and have been shrouded in secrecy. She says Canoe's done us a great service speaking about this over the weekend because someone, she says, should be talking about it. We'll hear more coming up. And a Winnipeg courtroom is expected to hear testimony today about the search for the remains of the 4 people killed by Jeremy Skibicki. He is on trial for 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women in 2022. We're going to hear a bit of what was said in court yesterday coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, great to be back with you guys. Good morning, Corey Funk.
Good morning.
And good morning, Abby Adiyemi.
Good morning, Mas.
Yeah, I was a little bit ill, lost my voice, scared myself, and here I am.
We're glad you're
feeling better.
Yeah. So the weather is absolutely beautiful. Today's going to be great, Abby.
It's going to be great. Can you see my shirts? It's all clouds and blue. So that's what the condition would really look like.
Got the summer wardrobe for the blue sky.
Yep. Comfortable at 7 degrees right now. We're seeing some clear skies and the sun is about to make an appearance. Today promises to be another beautiful day with abundant sunshine to enjoy and temperatures expected to soar to a delightful high of 24 degrees. So make sure you grab those sunglasses and sunscreen if you're preparing for the day, because I see that the UV index will be on the high side. Just reminding you to take care of it, protect your skin while you soak up the sun. Now, as we transition into the evening period, expect the skies to become partly cloudy and the winds will shift from the northwest and may bring some gusts overnight, but definitely the breeze will be something manageable, so you just want to take that into consideration. It's going to feel like summer today. The forecast calls for clear skies, lots of sunshine. We're going to get to a high of 24 and we'll see some clouds tonight.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Let's get into the commute details. Anything up, Corey?
No, nothing so far, but if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, let me know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
6:13 a.m. is the time right now on your Thursday morning. And you might recall earlier this spring, Information Radio was live in St. Boniface and talking to people about their fears that one of their beloved pools was going to close. And in fact, that is exactly what happened. The city's saying that they didn't have the funds to keep Happyland Pool open. But the bid to keep the pool open for one more season was led by the community. And unfortunately, it too has fallen short. The group called Friends of Happyland Pool ended up raising $75,000 to try and keep the St. Boniface pool open. But much more than that was what was raised is what's needed to keep the pool open for the season alone, according to the city. The city's Committee Community Services did not approve the pool staying open. This is the chair, Councillor Evan Duncan, speaking with reporters yesterday after the meeting.
What I'm seeing now is that the community has, stepped up to lobby some money, private donors, but it's still short of what the cost is to open the pool and operate the pool. Not to mention that the public service is already organized for this coming season and potentially would not have the staff resources. So there's a lot of factors at play here. I'm looking to ask some questions of the public service. At the end of the day, there was a council decision made that Happyland Pool would be closed. I haven't learned anything new that would change my opinion at this point in time.
Okay, so you think it's not enough, it should stay closed like the budget decision?
Right, with the capital costs that are associated to opening it, that's $100,000 on its own, plus approximately $100,000 to operate it. And right now, Community Group is telling us that they have in the ballpark of $70,000.
And sorry, $100,000 for capital, that's this year?
That's to open the pool, just on its own to open the pool. I'm going to be asking for a list of items that are involved in that $100,000, but that's a capital opening cost of the pool.
If it's not enough to open the pool, is there any way that the city can make use of the funds that the community has raised, or what becomes of that money?
Well, I think with Councillor Allard's movement towards doing some community consultation on a future plan for aquatics in St. Boniface, because Happyland is not unique to being aging infrastructure that is going to come up with some serious capital costs here in the coming years, is that we need to find a plan for St. Boniface. But we also need a plan for infrastructure in general when it comes to recreation and aquatics across the city of Winnipeg.
So potentially that money could go towards a capital cost of another pool, or?
Yeah, the plan that I see before us with the raising of private funds doesn't see those funds going back to the donors. It would go towards some type of recreation project in St. Boniface.
That was Councillor Evan Duncan speaking with reporters yesterday. Now, CBC reached out to Teresa Quick of the South St. Boniface Residents Association. She was not available for an interview this morning, but she said that the fight for Happyland Pool isn't over. Demolition of Happyland Pool, by the way, is expected to begin later this year or early next year. The funding motions for Happyland Pool will move on now to Executive Policy Committee, and then it goes to Council for a final vote.
Danse, Anine, Boujou, and hello. It's me, your favorite cousin, Rosanna Deerchild. Guess what? Unreserved is turning 10. That's like 100 in Res Dog years. And to celebrate, we're inviting you to a live taping of Unreserved, May 22nd at the Park Theatre in Winnipeg on Treaty 1 territory. Sherry McKay, Doozy, and Unreserved's Anti-Circle will all be there. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community and click on the link to register.
How fun is that going to be? May 22nd. Circle your calendar, register with the link, and check out Unreserved Live. It is a sunny at 7 degrees in Winnipeg. Our high today is going to be 24. Well, throughout the 1960s, Jackie Shane was a mainstay in the Toronto music scene, trailblazing a path as one of soul music's first black trans stars. Now, a documentary about her life has been released. It includes interviews recorded just before her death in 2019. So it's called Any Other Way, the Jackie Shane story, and it's named after this tune.
Here you come again, and you say that you're my friend, but I know why you're here. She wants to know how I feel. Tell her that I'm happy. Tell her that I'm gay. Tell her I wouldn't have it any other way. People have been talking since we've been apart, and when I pass I hear them whisper, there he goes with a broken heart. But when you see my baby, here's what you say. Tell her I wouldn't have it any other way. That's all I got to say, my friend. Now we better say goodbye. I think you'd better go right now, or you might see me cry. But when you see my baby, this is what you say. Tell her I wouldn't have it any other way. No other way. I wouldn't have it, baby. No other way. I just won't have it, baby.
From 1963, Jackie Shane and Any Other Way. As mentioned, a new documentary about the trans soul icon called Any Other Way, the Jackie Shane story, will be released on Crave later this fall. It just debuted at the Toronto Film Fest. It is 6:21 a.m. on 89.3. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. Well, let's turn our attention to national and international news next. The Israeli military has now taken control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing. It is the southern border with Egypt and has been crucial for aid delivery. Also, the crossing is a vital exit point for those who are able to flee into Egypt. Over 1 million people now, including more than 600,000 children, are living under increased bombing and fears of an Israeli ground invasion. The aid agency Save the Children has been working in Gaza since 1973. Patrick Robitaille is a senior advisor of policy and government relations for Save the Children Canada and joins us this morning to talk about the situation. Hello there.
Hello, good morning.
So what is the humanitarian situation in Rafah currently?
In Rafah, you have all of the population of Gaza that is now taking refuge. They've been displaced many times over, and they now live in makeshift tents and with little humanitarian aid that they've been receiving. It's a traumatized population. The children are living with a lot of anxiety, and everything's been missing from food to medication. So it's the situation right now in Rafah.
With the bombing intensifying and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu saying he will go ahead with a full-scale ground invasion, where has Israel right now told people in Rafah to go?
So the eastern part of Rafah received some leaflets that to tell them to be forced to move to Al Mawasi. It's on the side of the ocean. It's a place that have no sort of humanitarian services sufficient for the population that is there right now. So, let alone with 1,000 more that will be coming in the days and maybe weeks to come. So the location of Rafah that is currently being forced out includes 3 clinics, the only hospital in Rafah. So it's really concerning to see all of the people moving and also all of those that are staying behind.
How are people able to access those areas, even if they are on the move? How are they getting there?
There's no organization. It's really chaotic right now. There's a lack of fuel, so most people will be going by foot with whatever they have on their back. It's the fittest that are going first. There's so many people that have to take care of elderly, a lot of children that don't have immediate or sometimes even extended family to take care of them. Some have lost their limbs. Some are sick. So it's also all of the people that will have a very hard time to move to those zones. And it's a very difficult choice right now. It's either you stay and you have a risk of having extended fire and bombing and shelling in the next days, or going to a place that is totally unknown and for what we know don't have the adequate services right now.
How concerned are you about the shutdown of the aid corridor into Gaza? If aid stops being able to get through there?
Oh, that the Rafah crossing was the lifeline of the Gaza Strip. There was inadequate aid coming through. Our trucks are stuck at the border, but they were going drip by drip, and that was the hope for the people to receive food and medication and blankets and everything you need when you're displaced. We haven't seen any trucks passing through in the last few days. That's extremely concerning. We have no sight of where next we're going to be able to get some supplies and humanitarian needs and to be able to see people medically evacuated or support coming in. So right now it's the terrifying situation.
Your focus is obviously with children, with your organization. So what are your particular concerns for the children right now involved in this conflict?
Well, on the top, that children are all at risk of famine, like they are in the north right now. It's all of their immune system that is going down. But we can also think of protection elements such as all of the bombs that are unexploded that are in the streets. They've been the equivalent of 6 nuclear bombs. That's 75,000 tons of explosive, and experts are saying that usually 10% are not exploding. So that's all bombs ready to be exploded, usually found by children that will once again have a risk of losing their limbs. And overall, I mean, the mental health of the children, all of the children have been traumatized to some level, but it's this anxiety will carry for years to come, and that's why we need to see a definitive ceasefire. We need to see the bombing stop so we can care and attend to the needs of those children.
What are your most immediate and greatest concerns in the days ahead?
The days ahead is going to be a scramble for all the relocation of people, because it seems that it will be going ahead. We have to make difficult choices with not enough material, not enough people. All of our staff right now on the ground are themselves displaced with their family, and they have to answer to the tough questions of their children. Where are we going? Where and with very difficulty to answer. So our eye is going to be on the ceasefire negotiation that needs to happen now, on the access that cannot stop like it is right now, and the access within the Gaza Strip, so we can access the north as well. That's right now we are trying over and over to go up north, and we are denied to be able to help for the people who are still there.
All right, Patrick, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Patrick Robitaille is Senior Advisor of Policy and Government Relations for Save the Children Canada.
There are stories you just can't stop thinking about. They take you somewhere, they introduce you to someone, they share something new with you. Liftoff. Those are the stories you want to share with your friends, and CBC's award-winning documentary team is bringing them to you every week on Storylines. Storylines, new this season on CBC Radio 1 and always on demand on the CBC Listen app.
Good morning, everyone. Thursday morning, we had a beautiful sky this morning. It's bright out there now, a light blue, but it was just as rich, dark blue right around 5 a.m. It's going to be clear, nice, sunny, and a high of 24. It's the kind of day where you bring your shades for sure. And the winds will be lighter than yesterday, northwest 20 to 40. So a high 24 for Winnipeg. Sunny right now and 7 degrees. Brandon's partly cloudy and 4. Thompson's partly cloudy and 3, but you are expecting up in Thompson to have some rain today. Showers beginning late this morning with a risk of a thunderstorm for you this afternoon. The commute's been fine so far. Just a reminder to reach out to Corey if you need. 788-3093 is the commuter line here on CBC's Information Radio. You're listening to 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube, and I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for all the people who are filling in for me for the last couple of days. Great to be back with you. Phil DeMont is going to be back with us with business news after your 6:30 news, and today with our business report, Canadian cities continue to be plagued by high office vacancy rates in their downtown cores. We've talked a lot about that here in Winnipeg. We're going to hear more, though, analysis of whether or not that's a problem for developers or for the economy as a whole. So stay tuned. That's coming up with Phil in the next half hour. And then I should mention a little bit later on the program this morning, Premier Wab Kinew will be here for our monthly interview this morning, and we have a number of different things to talk to him about, including some stories we're about to hear in our news. So he will be joining us live later. And on a fun note, after 7:30, make a date not to be showering because you want to be listening to the radio. The brothers Landreth are bringing their Let It Lie 10th anniversary tour home tonight. They've been touring across North America and the UK. And Dave and Joey Landreth are going to join us in studio to celebrate the homecoming show. So that'll be some fun conversation and some good music coming up in the second hour of the show. Right now, though, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 7 degrees, sunshine, and it's going to feel like summer. A high today of 24. Premier Wab Kinew's comments suggesting a possible settlement with tobacco companies the provinces are suing came as a surprise to someone who's been tracking that ongoing legal saga. Manitoba and other provinces sued major tobacco companies to recover the costs of providing healthcare services for tobacco-related illness. Cynthia Callard is with Physicians for Smoke-Free Canada. She was surprised to hear the Premier comment because most governments have said very little.
The Premier's done us a real service. I think that it's something that needs to be talked about. I think the fact that it's been in secret should be repugnant to policymaking in Canada. There's huge policy implications for dealing with this industry that's caused so much harm.
CBC has reached out to some other provinces about a possible settlement. Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan responded saying they cannot comment because of ongoing litigation. A Winnipeg courtroom is expected to hear testimony today about the search for the remains of the 4 people killed by Jeremy Skibicki. He is on trial for 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women in 2022. He has admitted to the killings, but his lawyers argue he is not criminally responsible due to mental illness. Skibicki says in a police interrogation video played at the trial yesterday, he killed the women because it was something God called him to do. Skibicki is charged in the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and an unidentified woman Indigenous leaders have named Mushkode Bishake Ikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman. Recreational drug users are being warned to watch out for a deadly mixture that's killing an increasing number of Manitobans. It's a designer drug known as DAG, benzodiazepine. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner says it has been involved in 18 overdose deaths since January. Jeff Elder is a peer lead volunteer with the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network. He has lost friends to DAG. He describes it as an extremely potent combination of fentanyl laced with anxiety medications.
Because there's no overdose antidote, there's really no way of preventing or treating an overdose other than calling 911 and sending them to the hospital.
Elder advises users to guard against the effects of DAG by going slow and taking smaller doses than normal. It is not yet the full military operation it's been threatening, but Israel is still shelling the southern Gazan city of Rafah. In the midst of the shelling and the possibility of a full-scale Israeli campaign, the World Health Organization says its medical operations in Rafah will run out of supplies by the weekend. More than 1 million Palestinians are sheltering in that city, with the WHO saying the humanitarian crisis has reached epic proportions. U.S. President Joe Biden says the United States won't supply any weapons to Israel if it goes through with its threat to invade. And Israel's ambassador to the UN admits without American support, Israel's ability to fight Hamas would be significantly impaired. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Protesters who set up camp at the University of Manitoba say they will continue their advocacy for Gaza even after the encampment ends. The 3-day demonstration at the U of M Quad is set to wrap up later today. Protesters are demanding the university divest from companies connected to Israel and cut ties with Israeli institutions. Hussein Shukor is one of the spokespeople for this protest.
I think it is very important to give the students the spotlight. For now, our encampments are for 3 days. Maybe in the future we'll do encampments. But for now, this is what is agreed upon.
Protesters tell CBC News they have met with the school's administration, but their demands have not been addressed. And finally, Vancouver hockey fans are cheering. The Vancouver Canucks beating the Edmonton Oilers 5-4 last night in their first game of the second round Stanley Cup playoffs. The Oilers were leading most of the night, but Vancouver scored 3 in the third period. Game 2 is tomorrow night. You can find more news updated throughout your day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Who are you cheering for?
Do you know what? That's the beauty of it all. I'm not cheering for anyone. You can just sit back and enjoy. You don't have to be all stressed out. Just watch what happens.
Right. I'm still kind of cheering for a Canadian team to go the distance. So
yeah, and I do like Connor McDavid. There is that.
Yeah, there is that. All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
6:35 the time right now. Your regional forecast from Abby Adiyemi.
Good morning once again. Currently in Winnipeg, it's a comfortable 7 degrees with clear skies and the sun already shining outside. Today's forecast promises another beautiful day with abundant sunshine, and temperatures will be reaching a delightful high of 24 degrees. So don't forget the sunglasses as you set out for the day. Expect cloudy skies later in the evening with a refreshing northwest breeze overnight. Heading west to Brandon now, it's currently 4 degrees and mainly clear. Expect sunny skies and a mix of sun and clouds later in the afternoon and a high of 23. Moving north to Thompson, where it's currently 3 degrees and the sun is also making its appearance. Today we'll see a mix of sun and clouds with showers beginning sometime later this morning, with a risk of thunderstorm in the afternoon, and the high would be around 18 degrees. Further north in Churchill, where it's 2 degrees and mostly cloudy, today we anticipate mainly cloudy skies and showers starting late morning with a high of 8 degrees. Down in Dauphin, it's currently 4 degrees. It's clear and we have sunrise already happening there. Lots of sunshine at this moment. Today's forecast calls for more of the sunny skies, then becoming a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon with a high of 23. Gimli is currently at 2 degrees, having its sunny start already. For the Interlake region, we should be seeing sunny and breezy conditions with a high of 18. Steinbach is at 2 degrees and sunny. Today's forecast also calls for sunny skies. The highs will reach 24. Finally, Morris, it is 3 degrees. The sun is making its appearance in the Pembina Valley region, and the high will get to 24. But for Winnipeg today, we are getting to a high of 24.
You ride your motorcycle in this morning?
I did.
Yeah, must have been nice, I bet.
The morning period is a bit kind of different. Riding in the morning is dry, but I'm looking forward to the commute home because it was kind of chilly on my way in, and I'm like, okay, did I make the right call? But I did.
Oh, yeah. Like Heather said, it's going to feel like summer today.
Yeah, it's going to feel like summer today.
Corey, how about you? Did you ride your bike in this morning?
Right in. It's that weird time of year where it's that like mittens and like toque on the way in, and on the way home, you're kind of like, I wish I, and then you're kind of feeling overdressed because you're wearing like all
like Abby was saying,
yeah.
Probably a straight ahead commute though, I bet.
Very straight ahead commute on the bike this morning. There is one issue to look out for right now though. Dugald and Plessis, there's a stalled vehicle blocking eastbound Dugald in the left turn lane. So keep right to get around that. But there's no real delays that's causing yet. But if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on that CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, Phil DeMont is here now with our business report. Good morning, Phil.
Hi, Marcy.
So Canadian cities continue to be plagued by high office vacancy rates in their downtown cores. We know about that here in Winnipeg. Is it just a problem, though, for developers or for the economy as a whole, do you think?
It's a debate, but there is a growing concern that continued high vacancy rates in the downtown office towers could cause a hollowing out of cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary. Here's the problem. In 2023, the percentage of empty space in Canada's office buildings, almost 20%, and that's a record. Now, they haven't improved much since the beginning of the year, so 2024, first half of the year, really. So Toronto, it's 18%. Calgary, it's 23%. Winnipeg, it's 16%. So as a gauge, 10 to 12, the vacancy rates, that's kind of considered normal. But, don't think of it like, it's only 2 percentage points higher kind of thing. That's a fairly big jump in this world. After the pandemic, a number of employees were reluctant to go back to the office. So companies wanting to keep scarce workers set up a bunch of work-from-home schemes. Over the past couple of years, more workers have returned to the downtown, but in bigger cities with longer commutes, working in your house coat's been attractive to about 30% of employees, according to one study. In response, some housing experts, they're kind of thinking up ideas what to do with the towers if people don't come back. Well, you could turn it into apartments, especially with the growing number of homeless in some of our cities. But there's problems with that idea, experts say. The Brookings Institute, well-considered group out of the U.S., argues that the lack of office workers with their above-average income basically would hurt other businesses. You think of Toronto's theatre district or the restaurants in a downtown core, they wouldn't exist if you don't have the office workers, especially at noontime, where a lot of places, when I worked in Toronto, places were just open for lunch and early dinner, but they were closed at 6 kind of thing. You also get lower densities from these conversions. Brookings calculates a 500,000 square foot building would only yield about 500 units. So you'd actually, it's not, wrong word, but it wouldn't be a bonanza for affordable housing. In the end, high office vacancy rates in downtown cores, that's an issue that isn't going away because, if I'm a developer, do I really want to flip a building where I can get high rents and it's going to cost me money to flip it to get, rents from people as opposed to companies? But the debate is, that's going to be the debate. What do you do with these buildings if people don't come back?
Well, we'll have to see how Winnipeg stacks up in the end, because a lot of our planning moving forward involves mixed use and a lot of housing as well. So there's certainly going to be a shift here. Ottawa, let's go to another story. Ottawa's weighing in on the inability of Canada's banks to stop money laundering. What's happening here?
Yeah, yesterday, Canada's Superintendent of Financial Institutions was in Toronto at the C.D. Howe Institute trying to pump up the sector's record in this area. Peter Rutledge says he's comfortable with the ability of Canada's banks to prevent nefarious practices like money laundering, but there's always room for improvement. Last week, TD Bank was hit with the largest fine ever imposed on a Canadian bank, $9 million, for lax anti-money laundering controls. But Marcy, they're stealing themselves for fines in the U.S. in the range of $2 billion. That's because the bank failed to detect a money laundering and drug trafficking scheme that was run through some of its branches in the U.S. Rutledge will get his chance to boost the rules regarding banks' financial transparency because this year Ottawa gave OSFI new powers to get after financial institutions to better monitor things. And Canada probably could use some help. The Basel Institute for Government, that's out of Switzerland, gives Canada a, gentleman's B, if you will, grade for our ability to stop money laundering. We score 4.2 out of 10, with the higher score being worse. So we're better than some groups, but, the Scandinavian countries, okay, they're always better at us than everything, but bigger risk in this area than a number of other countries you might not suspect. France, the UK, Greece, even Uruguay scores better on the transparency scale than we do.
Finally, there's been some surprise at how well gold bars have sold at Costco's across North America. But you've also been looking at how gold is sold in other places in the world, including in Korea.
Korea, yeah. It's kind of interesting because I guffawed at this when I read about it, the selling gold bars to Costco members. Now, these aren't your 27-pound gold ingots you'd find at Fort Knox. These are 1-ounce bars, still worth about $2,600. But South Korea taking your ability to buy gold to a whole new level. There you can go to the corner convenience store to buy gold or a vending machine. One reason there's a gold rush right now in Korea, demand for gold bars and coins up more than 25% for the first quarter of 2024. Analysts say many Asian countries are dealing with increased economic uncertainty, but in some cases, it's the first time in a generation. Some of these countries have been pretty stable. Buying gold is one way for worried Koreans to diversify their assets. Another factor, in Korea, you don't have to buy and store big, heavy gold bars either. Retail buyers can get gold as small as a fingernail. That would still cost $165, but you wouldn't need a radio flyer wagon to carry your bullion home. In the U.S., analysts have raised the concern that holding gold in your home, if you're a Costco member, we'll say, makes you vulnerable to robbers. Probably not the issue in Korea, though, because I looked this up. The burglary rate in that country is about 1/10 of what it is in the U.S.
A radio flyer wagon to carry your bullion. You and Bartley Kivas need to get together. Way with words. What's happening in the markets this morning?
Right now, they're mixed in Europe, but they've turned positive. Germany and the UK up 0.5%. France is up as well. China's imports were better than expected, but that's a sign of domestic growth. So Shanghai was up close to 1%. The Hong Kong market was up more than 1%. Oil is up 63 cents, $79.62 a barrel. Gold's down $3, $2,319 an ounce. And finally, the Canadian dollar, it's up, but only slightly, 72.84 cents U.S.
All right, Phil, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Phil DeMont at our business desk. Well, it's sunny at 7 degrees. Are your kids up exercising? Well, maybe not. When it comes to physical activity, a new report card out has given Canadian kids and teens a D+ on their exercise levels. We're going to talk to one of the researchers in a couple of minutes about that. Next on the show, though, the Hanover School Division trustees made the decision to give themselves final say in hiring gym and art teachers. Now, that's a hiring policy that is something that is allowed under the Public Schools Act. School trustees normally are involved in hiring the superintendent, who would then be responsible for hiring staff. A group called the Hanover Parent Alliance for Diversity is concerned that this could lead to discrimination of the LGBTQ plus teachers that are being hired. So the letter has caught the attention of Nello Altamar, Manitoba's Minister of Education, who's now getting involved, Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning specifically. He said he would meet with the trustees. So this has been an ongoing story we've been covering here at CBC Manitoba. In the latest chapter yesterday, CBC's Ian Fraze spoke with the Education Minister about how that meeting went.
The Hanover Parent Alliance expressed some concerns around safety for queer and trans kids in the school division. I relayed that message to the board.
Do you personally share that same concern?
You know, I'm always concerned when parents bring this forward. I'm always concerned when kids don't feel safe in school. So we need to work together, the board, the department, so that we can get this done.
So I guess you get where the parent group is concerned. Like, do you respect where they're coming from?
I do respect where they're coming from, and these concerns need to be dealt with by the board.
If there is, we do have this new hiring policy in place, do you expect this hiring policy to change?
My expectations are that they follow the Public Schools Act. Actually, in the PSA, it does say that they can do it. That doesn't mean it's something that you want to do, but they can do it. I discourage them from doing it.
So you discouraged them from maintaining this hiring policy?
Yes, I did.
Do you anticipate them making changes?
I always have faith.
So you did ask them to change it?
I have faith that they're going to follow through on some of the suggestions I provided.
What suggestions did you provide?
That they become more inclusive space, a safe space for queer and trans kids. It's work. School divisions need to be exemplars. They need to be leading the community in this. They can't be doing the bare minimum. They have to lead, and that's what schools do, and I expect them to do that.
There was a board meeting yesterday. Do you know if there was any progress made on?
You know what? I don't know what transpired last night, but I can find out.
Technically, I can find out too. So I will.
You know what would be really interesting to see is if they posted the minutes and posted what occurred last night in a timely fashion.
I think we asked you about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago if you would be interested in removing any trustees. Do you have any interest in doing that?
Not right now. We want to work with boards. We want to provide support from the department so that they can follow through on the expectations as outlined in the Public Schools Act.
In terms of those trustees, you asked them to reconsider that policy. Did they make promises to you that they would?
They didn't say anything to me, but they did take note of what I said. A lot of nodding heads were in the room and understood what my concerns were.
Now, what about the parents? So that meeting was just on Monday. How did that meeting go? What was the reception there?
It went really well. I think all they want is just an avenue to express their concerns. Now, of course, being the Minister of Education, I want to give them that avenue. So that when they sent me the letter, we immediately reached out to them and invited them into the office.
Do you see how this hiring policy could make queer and trans kids uncomfortable?
In the end, they need to ensure that they're hiring people that are qualified for the roles that they're outlined in the job description. But I will say this too: we're in a very competitive environment when it comes to teachers. Teachers are going to look, and if they think that it's not going to be a welcoming place for them to work at, they're just not going to apply. They need to remember that. And also, too, principals and superintendents are really good at their jobs. They don't need to micromanage what they're doing.
I guess you respect where the parents are coming from. From your perspective, what issues do you encounter with the hiring policy as has been proposed by the trustees?
We need to ensure safe, inclusive spaces for all kids, including queer and trans kids. They need to feel safe in public schools. That's the #1 job of that particular board. I have faith that they will follow through on that.
What happens next? I mean, you mentioned you have faith in the trustees. Are you checking in at some point? What happens then?
We will be checking in. We'll be providing support from the department so that they understand what their roles are very clearly, as outlined in the Public Schools Act, and we'll support them in getting that done.
How do you provide that support? Are you sending an email?
You know what? No, not at all. We're going to actually send a retired superintendent and another person from the legal community to kind of help them through these processes.
That is the CBC's Ian Fraze, our legislative reporter, in conversation with Nello Altomar, the Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning. As of this morning, minutes from the May 7th school board meeting are not yet available on the Hanover School Division's website. If you want to read more on our website about this story, go to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned. And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
9 minutes to 7 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Great to be back with you. Brad and Corey and Abby behind the glass. Sunny start to our Thursday morning. It's going to feel like summer today, folks. High of 24 degrees in the sunshine. Right now it is already 7. Well, next in the show, typically when your kid gets a D+ on a report card, it's cause for concern. And that is exactly the grade that Canadian kids and teens have been given on a new report about their activity levels. Fewer than 40% of young people in this country are getting enough exercise. It's according to the 2024 Participation Report Card. To talk about it, Brianne Bruins is here, exercise scientist with Participation. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So can you elaborate a bit more about what your report tells us about young people's physical inactivity?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, kids received a D+ for overall physical activity this year, and that means that only 39% of children and youth in Canada are getting that recommended 60 minutes of heart-pumping physical activity per day. It is a slight increase from the D grade in 2022, which was during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it obviously is an undesirable grade, and coordinated efforts are definitely needed to help keep kids active.
How do we motivate people? I mean, I can ask you why physical activity is important, but it seems like we just continue to get these terrible grades. So physical activity obviously is important for all kinds of reasons.
Oh, definitely. Not only is it important for physical health, it's really good for kids' mental health, social health, and emotional health. So I think it's really just finding an activity that kids enjoy. So, sampling different types of sports and activities when they're young is a great way to get them excited about physical activity and, keep with physical activity as they get older.
And even beyond sport, is it right that in this report it says that we're seeing more overweight and obese children under the age of 5?
Yes. Yeah. So it's definitely popping up a little earlier, especially in the past 10 years. We're seeing it as young as kids of the age of 2. So it is really important to promote physical activity from a young age so that kids reap the benefits of physical activity from a young age and, have less health problems as they get older.
One of the things that's unique about your report this year is you looked at the impact that climate change has on children's physical activity. What did you find?
Yeah, so the impact of climate change has been particularly evident in the past 2 years, with the increases in weather alerts due to things like poor air quality because of smoke or high temperatures. Sport and rec activities have had to be canceled. Recesses in schools had to be held indoors, which unfortunately results in more time spent indoors being sedentary with increased exposure to screens. We need coordinated efforts to make sure that kids can be active amid a changing climate.
When you look back, I mean, you mentioned last year's report and that we've done marginally better, but what do you see in Canada in terms of a trend and the grades that kids have been getting in your reports over the years in this country?
Yeah, so we've actually never seen anything above a D+ for the overall physical activity grade since the report cards started, 16 report cards ago. So kids have been getting an F or a D range for physical activity over the years. So we definitely need some better strategies and, coordinated efforts from multiple sectors to be able to get into that C or B range. We really want to get the percentage of kids that are hitting that benchmark, up in the next few years.
What kind of coordinated efforts could governments be involved in? Are there policies that are proven that could help?
Yeah. So we've looked at different policies that governments have enacted and, things that they could be enacting. So we have seen the development of physical activity strategies at the provincial and territorial level, which is amazing to see. But we do need some more specific activities, like increased investment and access to active transportation, which will not only encourage active travel among children and youth, but it also helps reduce those carbon emissions. Governments can also invest in parks and recreation facilities in low-income neighborhoods and provide subsidies for low-income families to enroll their children and youth in organized sports.
And what about at the family level? What would your advice be to family members and to parents to try and help their kids be more active?
Yeah, so the best advice we can give is to, get active as a family. Kids are super responsive to the primary role models in their lives. So things like using active modes of transportation on family outings, going on family hikes, utilizing parks and community centers for active leisure time are great suggestions. But parents can also consider developing a family media plan to help with placing limits on screen time and, increasing that active playtime at home.
What do you see in schools that is encouraging to you? Like, is it formalized enough in gym classes and such that there's just activity, just keeping moving beyond actually organized sport?
Yeah, so we do see that physical education does play a role, but also things like daily physical activity policies that are put in place over and above physical education classes. So during instructional time, schools can put in place policies to increase daily physical activity. They can also put strategies in place for climate change when they have to hold recesses indoors to, organize activities that are active in nature instead of just having kids sitting at their desks.
Thanks for being with us this morning, Brianna. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's Brianna Bruins, an exercise scientist with the organization Participation. So I'm wondering if you're listening this morning and you work in a school and you have some great initiatives. I know years ago we did a highlight on a teacher that had something very simple to try to get kids moving, and it was over the PA, as I recall, and it was sort of really just the daily move. And I think they were dancing is what they were doing. So every day over the PA, the call would come, the kids would all get up in class and they'd get the groove on. So I'm wondering whether or not there's some great initiatives happening in a school where maybe you work or a school maybe that you attend. Love to hear about that on the listener line. 788-3205. How have you been successful at the school level, or if you've got an idea at home, to keep the kids moving? A D+ is the score that came in the latest report from Participation looking at Canadian children and teens in terms of their activity levels. That means fewer than 40% of young people in the country are getting enough exercise. It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock now. Heather Wells joins us with a news update. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitobans are being warned to guard against a recreational drug combination that has killed 18 people this year. Jeff Elder at the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network says he has lost friends to the extremely potent designer drug known as DAG, containing benzodiazepine. It is resistant to naloxone. Protesters who set up camp at the University of Manitoba say they will continue their advocacy for Gaza even after the encampment ends. The 3-day demonstration at the U of M quad is set to wrap up later today. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, if you're a summer lover, you're going to love today. Sunny and 7 right now. It's calm. Our high today in Winnipeg, 24 degrees in the sunshine. It's going to be really nice. It will there's a good chance it'll be different in other parts of the province. Thompson looking for rain this afternoon. But here in southern Manitoba, it's going to be pretty clear. On the commute this morning, things are also pretty clear. Call us if you have any major updates. 788-3093 is where you can reach us. Dugald and Plessis, a stalled vehicle blocking the eastbound left turn lane right now. You do have to keep right to pass there, but it's not causing delays. In the next hour of the show, we're going to hear from B'nai B'rith Canada. They say that Manitoba's Jewish community experienced a more than 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents last year, according to their latest report. So we'll dig into some of the details of that. Also, Heather just mentioned the designer drug that's contributing to the drug death crisis in Manitoba. We'll have a bit of a deeper conversation about it in the next hour. And at 7:40, a lot has changed for the brothers Landreth in the past decade. 3 albums, 2 Juno Awards. Their song was covered by Grammy-winning artist Bonnie Raitt, and they garnered a fan base all around the world. Their Let It Lie 10th anniversary tour celebrates a lot of those big moments. And tonight, the show is coming home. We're going to be joined by Dave and Joey. The brothers Landreth going to be joining us live in studio in the next hour. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Stay with us here on Information Radio on CBC. World Report is next.
Today on The Current.
But many Western officials saw the election as nothing more than a sham.
Vladimir Putin has been Russia's leader for a quarter century and just started his 5th term in office. He still has big plans to make his country a bigger military force and change society from the education system on up. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. We are watching southern Gaza this morning, and reports Israel shelled Rafah again overnight. So far, there are no reports of more Israeli troops moving into the city, something U.S. President Joe Biden warned against yesterday. He said if Israel invades, he will stop sending weapons. For the latest, let's go to our correspondent, Chris Brown, in Jerusalem. And Chris, how are Israeli officials reacting to Biden's warning?
Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing coalition partners are pretty furious. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir tweeted out this morning that Hamas loves Biden, and the Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich called for the full conquest of Rafah and for Israelis to be united against international pressure. The country's UN ambassador said the U.S. move is going to impair Israel's ability to fight Hamas. Now, people familiar with Israel's military have been talking to us and telling us they don't think this will have an immediate impact on Israel's ability to fight, but strategically it's huge as it sends a signal to Israel's adversaries just how deep the rift with the United States is and how much pressure is being applied to Israel to end the war with Hamas.
What do we know about the situation in Rafah right now?
Well, Israel's military is saying this is not a full ground offensive, but rather a limited incursion. However, lots of people are still being killed. In the last 24 hours, 8 people, including 4 children, killed when a residential building was hit by an airstrike. Rafah has been a refuge, of course, with over 1 million people staying in largely flimsy shelters. And now we're starting to see hospitals closing as well, as healthcare staff are joining up to 80,000 other people trying to flee to places Israel has declared will be safe. Beyond Gaza, of course, the focus remains on Cairo, where negotiators are trying to close gaps between Hamas and Israel that the U.S. says are bridgeable in order to bring the fighting in Gaza to an end.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Brown reporting from Jerusalem. Today in Ottawa, MPs will be investigating anti-Semitism on Canadian campuses. A Commons Justice Committee will hear from university students. They say since the Israel-Hamas war started in October, their schools have failed to provide a safe learning environment. Nati Pressman is with the Canadian Union of Jewish Students at Queen's University.
And what we're seeing on campuses is that our rights are not being upkept. My friends who used to wear kippot on campus instead now wear baseball caps.
Over the next couple of weeks, MPs will hear from the schools and police. They will also look into Islamophobia on campus. Russia is marking Victory Day. It is an annual patriotic celebration to honor victory over the Nazis in the Second World War. But once again, Russian President Vladimir Putin is using it to justify his war in Ukraine. Today, he was joined by the president of Belarus. As Briar Stewart tells us, the two leaders ramped up the nuclear rhetoric.
On Moscow's Red Square, military equipment, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, were wheeled out as part of an annual parade. 9,000 service members reportedly took part in the procession. But like it has been during the past 2 years, this was a scaled-down event because hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers are fighting in Ukraine. Russia will do everything to prevent a global conflict, but at the same time, we will not allow anyone to threaten us, said President Vladimir Putin. Taking part in the celebration were leaders of some former Soviet states like Belarus. Afterward, that country's president, Alexander Lukashenko, spoke alongside Putin about how plans are in the works to test tactical nuclear weapons.
It is a lot of posturing. It's not.
Eleanor Beinman is a senior lecturer at Manchester Metropolitan University, where she specializes in Russian and Eastern European politics. She believes Putin is trying to send a strong message when he's talking about nuclear weapons, but she believes the likelihood of him using them is not very high.
Of course, for Russia to use nuclear weapons, in Ukraine, that would be a dramatic escalation with very unpredictable consequences.
In the past, European officials have been invited to take part in Victory Day, but this year Russia said it didn't invite any, quote, unfriendly countries. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
China's president is in Hungary. That is his final stop on his European tour. Xi Jinping being welcomed by a military honor guard in Budapest. He will spend 2 nights in Hungary before returning home. She is scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The two are expected to discuss possible Chinese investment in Hungary. Unlike other European Union nations, Hungary has been pursuing closer economic ties with China. It is a tense time for the LGBTQ plus community in Ghana. The Supreme Court is now hearing a case on the constitutionality of an anti-LGBTQ law. The bill proposes up to 3 years in jail for anyone identifying as queer. It also criminalizes advocacy for LGBTQ plus rights. Ghana's president is under pressure from both critics and supporters of the bill and will not sign it into law until a decision comes from the court. Freelance journalist Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
I feel like there's multiple risks that has been aligned out there because of the bill.
Fafali identifies as queer and non-binary. We are not using their real name for their safety. They say this law would make an already terrifying situation for Ghana's LGBTQ community much worse.
If the president does sign it, it's going to be chaos.
President Nana Akufo-Addo must sign the law to enact it, but he says he is waiting for the Supreme Court's ruling on the case that challenges the legality of the anti-LGBTQ law. Ghana faces the risk of economic sanctions from the international community if President Akufo-Addo brings it into effect. The government says that could lead to a loss of nearly $4 billion in World Bank financing in a couple of years. But some advocates of the law say the economic threats should not deter the president from signing it. Samuel Nate George is one of the Ghanaian lawmakers who sponsored the bill.
When the president looks at us as a nation and tells us that he is more concerned about the so-called friends of Ghana, I am truly worried the kinds of friends the president keeps, because my friends will not blackmail me with money.
Ghana's LGBTQ community is eagerly awaiting the Supreme Court's ruling. For people like Fafali, it would be key in their decision to remain in the country or flee from oppression. Nabil Ahmed Rufai for CBC News, Accra, Ghana.
Canada's recruitment of international students is swinging strongly toward filling spots in business programs. Little is being done to meet the demand for workers in healthcare and the skilled trades. That is what a CBC News analysis of federal data has found. As Valérie Ouellette reports, students who came here to study and find a career are losing hope.
I applied in so many companies as an accountant and stuff.
Akash Singh had big dreams when he finished a 2-year business program at an Ontario college in 2021. Hundreds of applications later, he still works the same security job he had as a student.
I felt bad because I spent too much money on the course. It was $34,000 for 2 years of course.
His permit was among nearly 800,000 Ottawa issued to business students in the past 5 years, more than for any other field. That's 27% of all new and extended study permits, compared to 6% for healthcare programs and just over 1% for trades. Both sectors are in desperate need of skilled workers. Rupa Banerjee holds the Canada Research Chair in Economic Inclusion.
What we're doing is bringing in low-skill, low-wage, expendable and exploitable temporary foreign workers in the form of students.
Post-secondary consultant Alex Usher says business programs are cheap to run for underfunded schools, especially compared to technical or clinical training.
I don't think it had much to do with the labor market needs. I think what it had to do with was colleges' financial needs.
Federal Immigration Minister Mark Miller says it's up to provinces and schools to ensure programs offered to international students fit the job market. He said the measures imposed so far by Ottawa are aggressive but incomplete, and more restrictions could come. Valérie Ouellette, CBC News, Toronto.
Shirley Bassey is auctioning off some of her jewelry collection.
Diamonds are forever.
Bassie is the voice behind this 1971 James Bond theme. The 87-year-old singer is putting some very storied diamonds up on the block, including a vintage Van Cleef & Arpels ring covered in white diamonds. Elton John gave it to her after she sang at one of his AIDS galas. It is expected to fetch about $100,000. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Her voice without seeing shadowy images of a Bond movie opening, right? Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Beautiful out there. Lots of sunshine. You're on CBC. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us. This hour on the program, the brothers Landreth will be in studio. They're bringing their Let It Lie 10th anniversary tour home tonight after touring across North America and the UK, so stay tuned. Dave and Joy will be here at 7:40. Also, to more serious matters, a designer drug is contributing to the drug death crisis in our province. A local expert says we should all be concerned. We're going to hear more about it and also about what precautions he says we should be taking. But we begin in a few minutes by talking to the regional director of B'nai B'rith Canada. They say Manitoba's Jewish community experienced more than a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents last year, according to their latest report. Stay with us. Headlines now with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the head of an anti-smoking group is applauding Manitoba's premier for speaking about a possible settlement with tobacco companies. Cynthia Callard at Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada says lawsuits filed by all 10 have been ongoing for years and have been shrouded in secrecy. And she says Canoe has done us a great service because someone should be talking about this. We'll hear more about that coming up. As well, a Winnipeg courtroom is expected to hear testimony today about the search for the remains of 4 people killed by Jeremy Skibicki. He is on trial for 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women in 2022. We're going to hear a bit of what was said in court yesterday in our next news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, Abby Adeyemi's wearing a light blue shirt with little clouds all over it. You kind of match the summery vibe of today, Abby.
I tell you, that's the condition outside, clear and sunny. That's what it looks like right now in the city. We are sitting comfortably at 8 degrees. Today's forecast actually promises to be another beautiful one with abundant sunshine to enjoy. Temperatures will climb to a delightful high of 24 degrees today. So I just want to say it one more time and I won't say it again. The glasses. Just get them ready.
Wear the sunglasses.
Yeah, get them
ready. I thought you were going to say skip work. Oh, sorry. I didn't say that out loud.
In my head, maybe. But you might just want to get out. You know, that's the reason you want to go to work.
At least have lunch outside if you can, please.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget the sunscreen also because the UV index is on the high side. But on the other side, it's a beautiful day. And as we transition into the evening period, we should be expecting the skies to become partly cloudy with a refreshing northwest breeze. If we just have a sneak peek into tomorrow, Friday shaping to, continue this pleasant weather trend. We'll wake up to clearing skies and then another perfect day for outdoor activities. But today's forecast calls for clear skies, sunshine with a high of 24 degrees. And tonight, we're just going to see some cloudy conditions and some breeze. So I tell you, enjoy the day.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Let's get into the morning commute with Corey Funk.
Hi. Yeah, just a couple things to look out for there. Got a call from Lorenzo on the commuter line. He said northbound Pembina, just before Waller, you lose the curb lane and as well as the bike path due to construction. So heads up there if you're heading north on Pembina. He said no delays yet, but just keep left. That might catch you off guard there as well. Dugald at Plessis, eastbound Dugald at Plessis. The left turn lane, there's a stalled vehicle, so keep right to get around that. No delays as of now. But if you have any updates on what I just told you about, if you see something else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, B'nai B'rith Canada, the Jewish human rights organization, did release its annual audit of anti-Semitic incidents earlier this week. The report says that 2023 saw a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism across Canada. And here at home, it included a 400% increase in Manitoba. Ruth Ashrafi is B'nai B'rith's regional director for Manitoba and in studio with us this morning. Good morning, Ruth.
Good morning.
Can you give us a bit of an overall snapshot of what you found in your audit?
In the audit, as you said, we saw this enormous increase in the whole of Canada in 2022. There were 2,769 incidents, and last year in 2023, there were a staggering 5,791 incidents. And here in Manitoba, there were 261 incidents. And these numbers, they speak for themselves. I have very little to add for them. The vast majority of all those recorded anti-Semitic incidents happened in May, when Israel had a conflict with Islamic Jihad, and then, of course, after October the 7th, when Hamas massacred Israeli civilians and the Israeli-Hamas war broke out. So since October the 7th, I have been very busy.
Yeah. What's it like for you receiving those calls from Manitobans?
I find it very disturbing. There are calls that are directly related to the conflict in the Middle East, but there are also calls that are not related to that at all, and still they are sorry.
Okay, take your time.
They are about Jews being Jewish, being visibly Jewish, and being harassed with the conflict in the Middle East. To give just a couple of examples, there was a young boy walking the street wearing his yarmulke, his skull cap, and then a car slows down, the window scrolls down, and somebody yells at him, at the child, "Free Palestine." There are also anti-Semitic posters on the university campuses. A university student was wearing his Star of David necklace, and somebody tried to grab it from his neck, and they started to fight. So when I hear things like this, I think about the impact on the individual people who want to be proud Jews, who want to celebrate being Jewish, open, and who have to start hiding that right now.
What was it like for you around Hanukkah? You were sharing with me off air that you were getting a number of calls about how to proceed, and those conversations were obviously difficult for you.
Yeah, as you know, with Hanukkah, we have these menorahs that we light with those 8 candles, and it is normal to do that and put them in your front window to celebrate that miracle and that the lighting, bringing light in the darkness with the rest of the world. So, but you also mark your home as a Jewish home. So many people asked me, should we put our menorah in our front window under these circumstances when people are being targeted for being Jewish? And my husband and I, we had exactly the same conversation. I live in a busy street, and I said, I'm going to put my menorah in the front window. And he said, but you do realize that we may get a stone through our front window. But are you prepared for that? And I said, if that happens, then Canada is not a safe place for us anymore. And when I had said that, when that came out of my mouth, that was a very difficult moment. And people ask me, what should we do? What should I tell them? I don't know.
Obviously, we know what the factors are here that are leading to these discussions around the world. What are you hearing from the local Jewish community, specifically around how people are coping with the rise that is shown in your report, this 400% increase in incidents in Manitoba?
People feel intimidated, people feel scared, people talk also about leaving, and people, May is Jewish Heritage Month. The Jewish community has made enormous contributions to the Canadian society, and we always thought that we were safe here. We came here because we were persecuted in Europe, and after the Holocaust, many people found a new safe place here in Canada. We are not so sure about our long-term prospects, and that too is a hard thing to say, especially when you hear people who are pro-Palestinian say, go back to Europe where you come from. The community, we feel intimidated.
When you say people are considering leaving here, that's people literally saying, where would they leave to?
Strangely enough, many people feel a lot safer in Israel than we feel here.
some Jewish university students, I know you've said, obviously, you shared some incidents that have been called into your line, but have felt they've been unable to speak up in class. They shared with CBC about their perspectives on what's happening in Gaza. But we've also heard the same thing from Palestinian students here. How can we foster safe and productive discussions about Israel in this kind of changed environment? Is that a possibility at this moment?
Well, that is a very good question, because I think anti-Semitism is usually a phenomenon of something that is wrong in the wider society. They often say Jews are the canary in the coal mine. And what does that mean? The canary in the coal mine is more susceptible to poisonous gas than adults mine workers walking in the coal mine. And the health and strength of a society can be measured by how they treat their most vulnerable citizens. So Jews are not the only minority, but other minorities also experience, the problems of online hate, what I see not only directed against Jews, but the words that people use against other minorities. It is shocking. And when you see that the public debate, even in Parliament, it is uncivil. And during COVID, people became very extreme, very pro-vax, very anti-vax. All of that has a bearing on the society and has a bearing on the general climate. And when people then disagree about topics, the tone in which they voice those disagreements is way too harsh.
You've been, working with collecting statistics on anti-Semitism since the 1980s through B'nai B'rith, and you have done this work picking up the phone and hearing these stories. When did the real shift start in what you were hearing to what you're talking about there, the tone and the real divisiveness and coming forward?
The tone started after COVID. That was a real big uptick, but the amount of incidents, as I said, after October the 7th, then there was something every day.
How do you decide what is, if an incident, when you're deciding if an incident, when you're reporting, because this is a report, is anti-Semitic? Obviously, some pro-Palestinian protesters have been called out for certain slogans. Some are saying they promote Palestinian independence. They're not anti-Semitic. Where are you drawing the lines?
Well, I draw the line here that I think as the official Canadian position, there should be a two-state solution, a free democratic Israeli Jewish state alongside a free democratic Palestinian state. When people say we are promoting the establishment of a Palestinian state, I think good, absolutely. But when they are calling for the dismantlement of the only Jewish state in the world, Israel, that's where I draw the line.
What do you hope? Where do you hope we'll be in a year from now, Ruth, if you come in with next year's report?
Okay, so hope. I think that is, under the circumstances, a little bit of a naive word, but I love to be naive because I love to have hope. And my hope is for peace in the Middle East, for peace between Israel and for the Palestinians, for there to be a solid democratic Palestinian state with the Palestinian government that will invest building homes for its citizens rather than underground tunnels, and for building hospitals that are not going to be used as military bases. I really think that there is so much potential. There is much more that binds Israel and the Palestinians together than what separates us. And I hope that the people in the Middle East will realize that.
What would you say to people in Manitoba, the public here, to try and bring the number of incidents down in our home where we live?
Speak up. When you see something, say something.
Thank you for being here, Ruth. Is there anything that you would like to add?
No, thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you here. That's Ruth O'Shraffy. She's the Regional Director of Manitoba with B'nai B'rith Canada, talking about their latest report. It came out across the country earlier this week. It showed a rise in the audit of anti-Semitic incidents. That came out earlier this week. In 2023, they looked at Manitoba. It included a 400% increase in incidents here.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Time right now is 7:24 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or on YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Great to be back with you this morning. Big thanks. I thanked earlier, but I need to thank again. I've been off for a number of shows here. I was quite sick, lost my voice, scared myself a little there. But big thanks to Faith Findell, to Emily Brass, as well to Corey Funk, who've all been filling in for me here. It's mainly sunny in Winnipeg this morning. Beautiful outside, 8 degrees, calm, and sunny and a high of 24. So make some kind of plans to enjoy it today. It just looks like it's going to be gorgeous. Winds will be lighter as well. Winds will become northwest 20, gusting to 40. Tonight's low 10 degrees. Tomorrow we're expecting a high of 21. And for our Friday, it's going to be clear in the morning. A little bit windier, though, through tomorrow afternoon. A little bit of a different story today in northern Manitoba. Thompson expecting a mix of sun and cloud. Showers beginning late this morning. Even a risk of a thunderstorm in Thompson this afternoon with a high of 18. And then some showers tonight as well. If you need us on the morning commute, which, as I said, should be lovely, besides calling to tell us that, oh, no, you forgot your sunglasses, so don't do that. 788-3093 is where you can reach Corey with any commute news and let us know what's going on out there with problems. Well, next, it's time for morning sports. Scott Regehr joins us live at 7:25 a.m. on CBC. Good morning.
Hey, nice to have you back, Marcy.
Thank you. So what stood out from opening day of Bombers rookie camp for you?
Well, Milt Stegall certainly doesn't need any sleep, does he? The Bomber legend taking part in day one of rookie camp. I think the anticipation of his long-awaited comeback, Marcy, must have gotten to him as he told reporters he woke up at 3 a.m.
I've never been this nervous before a training camp in my life. And I don't know why. I was like, it's not like I'm trying to make the team or, if I get hurt, so what? But I guess it was just, it's been 16 years the last time I've been in the training camp. And I didn't know what to expect, but once I got out here, started moving around a little bit, I got the butterflies out, and it was a great time.
The 54-year-old Stegall, only taking part in the first day of camp as part of a quote-unquote vanity project, trying to see how he stacks up fitness-wise against the young crop of Bomber hopefuls. And in that sense, man, the CFL legend acquitted himself quite nicely, finishing 5th in the 300-yard shuttle run and catching a couple of passes to boot. He was caught on one pass attempt by newcomer defensive back Demetrius Ford, although he told Ford, quote-unquote, I know you're trying to make the team, so I did not want to show you up. Rookie camp continues today at Princess Auto Field with main camp opening up on Sunday.
And if he's sore today, he won't tell us all.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Let's go to the ice. It was a historic and winning night for the Canadian women's hockey team.
Yeah, and Blair Turnbull made sure of that, Marcy. The Toronto forward scored twice in her team's 4-0 shutout of Minnesota, the first ever PWHL playoff game. And by the way, Brandon's Kristen Campbell in goal for Toronto for that shutout. It was never really in doubt, and the sellout crowd in Toronto was as loud as they come. Here's Turnbull.
It was amazing. We kind of knew what to expect after our game at Scotiabank, and then having these games sell out just as quickly as that one did. We knew that the crowd would be loud and the fans would be engaged, and they were. As soon as we stepped on the ice for puck drop, the fans were so loud. Having home crowds like that really helps calm the nerves and gets you excited to be on the ice and ready to play. So the crowd was awesome, and we're looking forward to another big atmosphere like that for Game 2.
Yeah, that game goes tomorrow night. The 17,000 tickets available for these Toronto playoff games were snapped up in a mere 15 minutes. Just one of many eye-opening achievements during this first PWHL campaign. The league broke several attendance records, including last month in Montreal, when more than 21,000 turned out. And speaking of Montreal, they host Boston this evening, Marcy, as the playoffs continue. Montreal coach Corey Chevry was asked about her opponent.
I don't know how many teams actually like Boston in any sport, in men's hockey, women's hockey. I don't think they're well liked.
She said it. I didn't. 6 o'clock puck drop tonight, Eastern time.
And I just want to correct myself. I don't know why I said Canadian women's hockey team instead of Canadian women's hockey previously. But let's go to the NHL now, where there's a budding rivalry between a couple of Canadian teams.
For sure. The Canucks and Oilers, Marcy, may not have matched up in the playoffs in 32 years, but they looked like old foes last night. Favored Edmonton went up 4-1 and seemed to be cruising to victory when Vancouver mounted a furious comeback to win the opener. Canucks defenseman Nikita Zadorov was among the goal scorers.
We all watched the Real Madrid game today. They came back, scored 2 goals at the end to make the Champions League finals. It's our inspiration. At least it was mine.
Yeah, Zadorov talking about yesterday's Champions League soccer semifinal, won just as dramatically by Real Madrid over Alphonso Davies and Bayern Munich.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott.
You betcha.
Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks so much for joining us. Small traffic note before the news here. Eastbound Dugald and Plessy. There's a stall that had been in the area that's now been cleared. So it's now all clear. Eastbound Dugald and Plessy. All lanes are open and no delays there. If you want to update us on this sunny Thursday morning, 788-3093 is where you can reach us. We'll still head on the program after 8 o'clock on the show. The Premier has said the new cancer care facility will be built with money from a settlement with Big Tobacco, but did he speak too soon? We will ask him after 8 o'clock on the show. We'll hear more about that story in a moment in the news. Also, are other provinces getting ahead of Manitoba in their bid for new sources of clean energy? We will ask the Premier during our monthly interview as well. So that's all coming up after 8 o'clock. Wab Canoe will be live here in studio. But right after the news, make sure you're still listening because the brothers Landreth are going to be in studio. They have their Let It Lie 10th anniversary tour at home tonight after touring across North America. Dave and Joey Landreth live here on CBC after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. The sun is shining. It's 8 degrees. Nothing but sunshine all day. The winds have eased up, and we're headed to a summery high of 24. The head of an anti-smoking group is applauding Manitoba's premier for speaking about a possible settlement with tobacco companies. Cynthia Callard at Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada says lawsuits filed by all 10 provinces have been ongoing for years and have been shrouded in secrecy. Negotiations are currently in mediation, according to lawyers for 2 of the tobacco companies. On Saturday, Premier Wab Canoe said Manitoba could be getting up to $500 million in an initial payment. Callard wishes the process was more transparent.
The question of how you settle or what you settle with or how you agree to resolve a dispute between government and industry should not have kind of a zone of secrecy on it because we're all affected by that.
Lawyers for the tobacco companies say they can't comment, citing a court order which prevents the parties from talking about their negotiations. A Winnipeg courtroom is expected to hear testimony today about the search for the remains of the 4 people killed by Jeremy Skibicki. He is on trial for 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women in 2022. He has admitted to the killings, but his lawyers argue he's not criminally responsible due to mental illness. Skibicki says in a police interrogation video played at the trial yesterday, he killed the women because it was something God called him to do. Skibicki is charged in the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and an unidentified woman Indigenous leaders have named Mushkode Bishake Ikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman. A former inmate is suing the province for negligence for the way it uses solitary confinement. James Darren Audi has applied for the suit to become a class action. He wants to represent all current and former Manitoba inmates who opt in, specifically those who had a serious mental illness, were youths, or spent more than 15 consecutive days in solitary. The suit claims the province has maintained an enormously harmful system of solitary confinement, and it's used without due process or oversight. None of the allegations have been proven in court. A statement of defense has not yet been filed. Manitobans are being warned to guard against a recreational drug combination that has killed 18 people this year. Jeff Elder is a peer lead volunteer with the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network. He says he has lost friends to the extremely potent designer drug known as DAG.
It's flooding our streets. Anybody that used to use recreational opiates, things like hydromorphone, oxycodone, heroin even, it's all been replaced with this fentanyl that's been laced with benzodiazepines and other tranquilizers.
Elder says antidotes like naloxone do not work on DAG, so he advises users to protect themselves by going slow and taking smaller doses than usual. The pro-Palestine encampment at the University of Manitoba is set to come down later today, but people there say they plan to continue their protest in other ways. The demonstrators are demanding the University of Manitoba disclose and cut ties to companies and institutions implicated in Israel's invasion of Gaza. Encampment spokesperson Victoria Romero says getting the school to agree to that is just the first step.
If they're willing to sit down and accept the demands, that would really signal that the university cares about human rights. They identify that there is a human rights crisis going on, a genocide going on, and that they're standing on the right side of history. And with that, we would hope that the administration would be willing to work with us on issues going forward.
The encampment was set up amid similar protests in campuses across Canada and the U.S. In Ottawa today, a Commons committee is investigating anti-Semitism on university campuses.
And what we're seeing on campuses is that our rights are not being upkept. My friends who used to wear kippot on campus instead now wear baseball caps.
Natty Pressman is with the Canadian Union of Jewish Students at Queen's University. She says since the start of the Israel-Hamas war in October, Canadian universities have failed to provide their students with a safe learning environment. Over the next 2 weeks, MPs will hear from schools, students, and police officials. Also on the agenda is Islamophobia on campus. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. And a grass fire the size of 3 football fields in Transcona last night forced trains to stop while crews put out the fire. It happened just after 7 in grass and brush near Day and Gun Road. The Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service used a drone to find the hotspots and special wildland firefighting equipment. That fire was out in about an hour. Despite recent rains, the Fire Paramedic Service says conditions in Winnipeg remain dry and high winds increase the chance of grass fires. So far, there's no cause for this particular fire, but the Fire Paramedic Service says most vegetation fires are caused by humans. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby Adeyemi, tell us all about the good news in the forecast.
It's beautiful outside. I will tell you that for sure. We are at 8 degrees. It's clear and it's sunny outside. Beautiful day ahead for us. We'll be heading to a high of 24 degrees. Plenty of sunshine to go round. Don't forget the shades, okay? I will not talk about that. I promise. I said I will not talk about the last time. Heading to Brandon now. It's currently 5 degrees and clear. Also sunny. Today we'll get more of a sunny skies, and then you see a mix of clouds coming, and later we'll be reaching a high of 23 degrees. In Thompson, it is 5 degrees and sunny. Expect a mix of sun and clouds later, and some showers will also be coming your way, and you will be seeing a high of 18. Churchill is mostly cloudy at 3 degrees. Showers will be starting late this morning, and then we will be seeing a high of 8. Dauphin is at 4 degrees and clear. Sunny skies you're seeing at the moment, becoming partly cloudy later. You're heading to a high of 23. Gimli is at 6 and sunny. Sunny and breezy conditions you'd get today, and you'd reach a high of 18. Good morning to folks in Steinbach. You are currently seeing a sunny sky at 5 degrees, heading to a high of 24. Murray's also heading to a high of 24, but currently at 5.
All right, thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was a traffic line, Corey. So
Yeah,
you're
I
clearly
know.
in studio, so whoever that was, call back.
Yes, please do.
788-3093.
Yes,
Call back.
and I wonder if they're calling about something similar that Matthew called me about. Apparently, there's a wild turkey on the eastbound south perimeter just before Fermor. Yes, and apparently it's not afraid of the road. It was on the road. He had to kind of swerve around it. So look out for that if you're heading eastbound south perimeter just before Fermor. Might be a wild turkey there. As well, Lorenzo called northbound Pembina just before Waller. You lose the curb lane and the bike path, and that caught Lorenzo off guard. So look out for that. Stay left. If you see something else, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Oh, the prairies. All right, thanks, Corey. 23 minutes to 8 o'clock now on 89.3. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3. Well, while the brothers Landreth have become a household name in Canada's music scene, there was once a time when they were just Dave and Joey, two brothers who decided to spend more time together by starting a band. We went in the archives this morning for a bit of fun. So have a listen to a bit of an interview from 2013. This is with Ismaila Alpha. You know, Ismaila hosted Up to Speed Forever before he left to join CBC Toronto. So this is Ismaila when the brothers were preparing for their very first album release show.
I don't have a lot of expectations for this band. Whatever comes of it, comes of it. But when it comes to the music that we make and the music that we play on stage, I would say that we do have pretty high expectations, and that's from playing with amazing musicians.
We've been greatly rewarded in the sense that it sort of manifests itself as support from our peers, from our family, from fans. We actually have fans. Like, what the?
You sound surprised, man.
10-ish years later, 3 albums and 2 Junos later, the brothers Landreth are bringing their Let It Lie 10th anniversary tour to the Burton Cummings Theatre tonight. They do have a few fans. Dave is in studio with us now. Good morning, Dave.
Hello.
Joey's here as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Finn's here. I just got to say good morning to your little boy, Dave, there. Hi, Finn.
You want to say hi, Finn?
Hi. What's it like for you to hear that clip? I saw you kind of perk up and lean in and listen.
Oh, that's so fun. It brings back some really nice memories. Just reminds me of how many times we've come in and chatted with you folks here over the years too. And it's funny to hear the younger voices too. 10 years does something to your voice and your face and your hair and everything, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun. That's a little ride in the Wayback Machine.
When you think about it, Joey, like 10 years later now, and you think about who you were sitting here 10 years ago, dreaming about what could be, how's it turned out?
Oh, it's far exceeded what we thought it was going to do. I think it's funny to hear Dave talk about not really having expectations or not having expectations on what the band was going to do, and that's kind of been our motto since the very beginning. And we have beaten any of the dreams that we thought we would have, and I just we've been riding on icing on the cake for the last 7 years. The things that we've been able to do. I feel very grateful, and yeah, it's fun. This hometown show feels like a very triumphant thing for us. So
what
cool.
stayed the same for you in terms of your relationship and your music making that you think might be key to your success?
I think we've just been aligned in terms of what it is that we're out here doing it for, and if anything, I think that's sort of what's held us together, is that we just kind of want the same thing, which is to get up there and make really, really good music. We want to do it play as best we can. We want to write the best songs we can. We want to record them as well as we can. And that's kind of always held true. There's been this kind of standard that we're shooting for artistically and in terms of integrity and honesty in the lyrics and the music. And when you're sort of locked in on a simple foundation like that, then I think it helps you weather all the other stuff that can come with the biz and touring and life and all that. So yeah, I think sort of knowing why we're in it and why our hearts are in it.
How do you prioritize sort of the brother relationship and the artist relationship? Because that's got to be a dance.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a constant effort. It requires maintenance, and we do put a lot of work into it. I mean, it mostly means prioritizing communication with each other, and which is not always the easiest thing, but it's really important to us, and so that's kind of been that's been our main sort of thing.
Did you guys? Did either of you ever have? Do you have a "we made it" moment? Like, was there sort of, or are you still thinking about "we made it" moments despite all your great success? Or I'm just curious about that.
Well, that's kind of the thing, because our "we made it" moment, I think, would have been like, we went on a tour, like that. Those when we first started the band, our loftiest goals were to go on tour, and and so all of the big achievements that we've had have just been like, can you believe this?
Yeah.
It's kind of more.
So you
more
continue
like that.
to have "you made it" moments, maybe.
Yeah.
I think hilariously enough, that interview that was right before our show at the WEC, which was our first
sure.
show, that was a big "we made it" moment. But I think recently, actually kind of coming home from maybe the European tour, there was a moment where I personally kind of came home and realized that
That's your little boy yawning. I love that. He's so adorable.
we got him up early for the interview.
You're the cutest, Finn. I can't take it.
When we got home from this European tour, it kind of dawned on me that we had weathered the hardest part of your career is hanging on for these first 5 to 10 years, because they're really fraught, and there's no money, and there's no certainty, and there's no consistency. And when we got to the end of that European tour and got home, and it was a really great tour, and the shows were packed, and the band was, for the most part, comfortable, for the most part. And I kind of realized, like, hey, we've kind of suffered through the hardest part of this curve and now we actually have this sustainable career.
Yeah. What's it like doing it as fathers? So you've got your little boy on your lap, and then you have a little girl named I'm going to get this right, Joni.
That's right.
She's 3.
I think she's listening. Hi, Jones.
Hi, Joni. I can't handle this because she loves the bridges in Winnipeg. This is the best story.
She does. Yeah. So our mom lives in Garden City, and we would drive over the Arlington Street Bridge to take her to my mom's house. And so every time we get to the Arlington Street Bridge, she says, "Hi, Arlington Street Bridge. How are you?" And then we have to pretend to talk as the Arlington Street Bridge. But now that the Arlington Bridge is closed, we have to use the Salter Bridge. And so we pull up to the Salter Bridge, and then we talk to the Salter Bridge. And then often we see Arlington Bridge, and Joni will ask how Arlington Bridge is feeling.
Oh,
and,
no.
And if they're going to get better soon.
Oh.
And I don't have the heart.
Oh, no. Oh, no. What's it like for you guys doing this job as fathers now, though? I mean, you're away on the road a lot.
It's the hardest part. It's single-handedly the hardest part. And, you know, we're very fortunate. I think maybe another you made it moment for us is that we can choose how long we're gone for. And it's not going to destroy what we're capable of doing, because in the early days, when, you know, especially when money is very, very tight and opportunities are
take
few,
them all, do it all.
You have
right?
to do it all. I mean, we were on the road like 260 days in 2015, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't have to do that anymore. So we're very conscious of how long we're gone for and how long of breaks we take in between and things like that.
I want to be conscious to make sure we get some music on here, and I don't talk us at a time here. But what's the show going to be like? The anniversary show tonight back home in Winnipeg?
Oh, it's the best thing we've ever done on stage. We're so proud of this show. It's 2 sets. So we do the first album, Let It Lie, top to bottom acoustic, 4 voices on stage, 4 guitars. It's Murray on acoustic guitar, Roman Clark playing drums in the electric band, but playing acoustic guitar as well in the first set. Everybody's singing. It's so much fun. And then we take a break and we come back and we do a full-on rock show. So it's well over 2 hours of music. The whole first record, a bunch of other sort of choice picks from the set list over the years, and the band is playing their tails off, and we're having more fun than we've ever had. So it's just a joyous night of music.
Last word to the fans, Joey, before we spin a tune and give away some tickets. Keep listening. We have tickets to give away. Last word to the Winnipeg fans, back where you started.
Yeah, I mean, come out to the show. We would love to have you. Like Dave said, we're really proud of this. It's really special to revisit this old music and kind of like, it feels like hanging out with an old friend you haven't seen in a while. So if you were thinking of coming to the show and you're on the fence, please come. We'd love to have you. And we think you'd really love it.
It's going to be a great night as well in town. It's beautiful outside.
Yeah.
Thank you both for making time. Nice to meet you, Finn.
Thanks for having
Bye.
us. You want to say bye, Finn?
Bye.
Bye. Take care, you guys. Thanks. Have a great show tonight. That is live in Studio 15. Dave and Joey Landreth, a.k.a. the Brothers Landreth, the Let It Lie 10th anniversary show tonight at the Burt. Yeah, we have tickets to give away. If you want to win, email us, win@cbc.ca, win@cbc.ca. You have to tell us about your favorite Brothers Landreth tune. Include your name and phone number, and we will reach you after the show. Here's the acoustic, Let It Lie.
You get the summons, I'll pay the fine. I'll know my place, you can take your time. You take the high road, I'll take the blame. But take me in your arms, it's all the same. And I may never see, dear, or say the words you want to hear. I can't always be the one to swallow my pride. If you let your walls down, maybe you would know how to leave this alone and let it lie, let it lie. I want it less, you need it more. I'd shuffle my feet while you slam the door. But I was just happy to sit and sing. Oh, my darling, you wanted everything. And I may never see, dear, you say the words you want to hear, and I can't always be the one to swallow my pride. If you let your walls down, maybe you would know how to leave this alone and let it lie, let it lie. You say I'm selfish, that may be right, that my songs can't keep me warm at night. So you go your way, I go mine. I know you're hurting, but you'll be just fine. Oh, see, dear, you say the words you want to hear. I can't always be the one to swallow my pride. If you let your walls down, maybe you would know how to leave this alone and let it lie, let it lie.
Beautiful acoustic version of Let It Lie from their brothers Landreth. So win at cbc.ca if you want to go to the show tonight to Brothers Landreth at the Burt. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away. Email us win at cbc.ca. It's the only way to win. Tell us about your favorite tune. Make sure you include your name and phone number, and after the show we will randomly draw and let you know who is going. It is 9 minutes to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Next on the program, as you've been hearing in the news this morning, the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network says that the public should be concerned about a designer drug that's showing up on Manitoba's streets. It's called DAG. It's a type of benzodiazepine. Now, the preliminary numbers from the province show that in January, 18 people who died from drug poisoning had DAG in their systems. Jeff Elder is a peer lead volunteer with Manitoba Harm Reduction Network and on the line with us now. Hi there.
Hi.
How do you describe this? What is DAG, Jeff?
It's an opiate benzodiazepine mixture that's being flooded on the streets right now.
What is the effect that it has on people who take it?
It's an extremely potent tranquilizer, and it pretty much knocks the user right out.
And what happens if it's combined with an opiate like fentanyl?
It increases the potency significantly and makes it much more dangerous to consume.
So if it knocks someone out by taking it on its own, if it's combined with an opiate, does it also just knock you, but does it also knock you out, or does it increase the potency of what the fentanyl reaction would be?
Let me rephrase that. It'll knock the user out if it's consumed in too high of a dose. So it's mostly just used to increase the potency.
What's your sense of why we're seeing it in Winnipeg on the streets now?
Because it's getting harder and harder for these drug dealers to get pure fentanyl. Okay. So they're using whatever they can to cut it down and make it stronger so that people don't notice that there's less out there.
In your view, why should Manitobans be particularly concerned about this drug?
I don't think it should be restricted to Manitoba. I think this should be Canada-wide, and I think it's mostly because there is no overdose antidote like there is for fentanyl and other opioids.
So DAG is resistant, as you're saying there, to naloxone, right?
Well, yes, because benzodiazepines are not don't respond to naloxone at all.
So when we were hearing Main Street Project earlier this year, last year, Main Street Project was talking about how many doses of naloxone it was taking to bring people back when they had to administer it. Is it possible that more doses were needed because maybe the fentanyl that was mixed with this DAG?
It could potentially, but like I said, there is no fentanyl doesn't work for the benzodiazepines.
Naloxone doesn't work for it. Preliminary January numbers I mentioned here from the province, Jeff, show 18 people died of drug poisoning, had DAG in their systems. I understand that this is personal for you. You knew some of these people. What comes to mind when you're thinking about that 18 people have been lost to this, and we don't have any way of stopping the drug, at least right now?
Absolutely. I mean, there was just another funeral this last Monday. It's heartbreaking and it really sucks, but I just think people need to be aware that it's out there and that know that if they're going to use in smaller quantities than they normally would, especially if they're picking up a new egg.
What happens? What's your fear of what might happen if DAG becomes more prevalent in Manitoba?
That it'll result in more overdose deaths.
Is there something that you would like to do to be done to prevent DAG from harming people in this province? Like, what do you think should be done to protect people?
Well, the only thing that would really stop this would be, in my opinion, would be decriminalization of all narcotics.
When you see DAG show up on the street, is there a way to identify it? I understand there's some drugs in new colors and such. Is that how are you warning people about this?
Well, there are multiple ways that you can get your hands on things like test strips that allow you to dissolve a small quantity of the drug in water so that you can test it and see if there are benzodiazepines in there.
Do you think it's widely known that is something that can be done to help people try to access safe supply?
It's becoming more and more widely known, yes.
And how long have you been aware of obviously we're getting statistics now, but how long have you been aware that DAG is something that is a threat on the streets here?
At least a year and a half, if not the last 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years. Anything you want to add, Jeff, this morning as we're still walking through the early days of this?
Not particularly.
Well, I'm sorry for the losses that you suffered in your personal life, and I do appreciate your time this morning with us. Thank you.
No, thank you.
That's Jeff Elder. He's a peer lead volunteer with the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network. If you want to read more about DAG, please go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for more in the news.
Good morning. Well, the head of an anti-smoking group is applauding Manitoba's premier for speaking about a possible settlement with tobacco companies. Cynthia Callard at Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada says lawsuits filed by all 10 provinces have been ongoing for years and have been shrouded in secrecy. We'll hear more coming up. As well, a grass fire the size of 3 football fields in Transcona last night forced trains to stop while crews put out that fire. It happened just after 7 at Day and Gun and was out in about an hour. Even with recent rain, officials say conditions are still very dry. And while there's no cause for last night's fire, the fire paramedic service says most grass fires are human-caused. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Traffic is fine this morning so far. Nothing major to report. Call us, though. 788-3093. Going to be bright out there. It is 8 degrees. Winds are calm. Our high is 24 today in the sunshine. And by now, you might even be brave enough to just leave the jacket at home entirely. Coming up after 8 o'clock on the program, Premier Rob Canoe will be here for our regular monthly interview. Today, are other provinces getting ahead of Manitoba in their bid for new sources of clean energy? We'll ask the Premier about that. Also, the Premier said that the new cancer care facility will be built with money from a settlement with Big Tobacco. You just heard some reaction to that in the news. But did he speak too soon? Why does he know about this beyond other provinces that CBC has reached out to? So we'll ask for some clarity when the Premier joins us after World Report. Stay tuned.
On Cue with Tom Power.
And the Grammy goes to Leve.
Leve sings music inspired by Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald, but when you look into her audience, it's full of young people. In fact, she's been called someone responsible for bringing jazz to Gen Z. How does she do it? Leve will be here to tell you. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Vladimir Putin has been Russia's leader for a quarter century and just started his 5th term in office. He still has big plans to make his country a bigger military force and change society from the education system on up. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Smoke is rising over southern Gaza. More Israeli airstrikes are reported in Rafah overnight. U.S. President Joe Biden is warning Israel not to invade the border city. He said if the IDF sends in its troops, the United States will stop providing weapons. For the latest, let's go to our correspondent, Chris Brown, in Jerusalem. Chris, how are Israeli officials reacting to Biden's warning?
Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing coalition partners are pretty furious. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir tweeted out this morning that Hamas loves Biden, and the Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich called for the full conquest of Rafah and for Israelis to be united against international pressure. The country's UN ambassador said the U.S. move is going to impair Israel's ability to fight Hamas. Now, people familiar with Israel's military have been talking to us and telling us they don't think this will have an immediate impact on Israel's ability to fight, but strategically it's huge as it sends a signal to Israel's adversaries just how deep the rift with the United States is and how much pressure is being applied to Israel to end the war with Hamas.
What do we know about the situation in Rafah right now?
Well, Israel's military is saying this is not a full ground offensive, but rather a limited incursion. However, lots of people are still being killed. In the last 24 hours, 8 people, including 4 children, killed when a residential building was hit by an airstrike. Rafah has been a refuge, of course, with over 1 million people staying in largely flimsy shelters. And now we're starting to see hospitals closing as well, as healthcare staff are joining up to 80,000 other people trying to flee to places Israel has declared will be safe. Beyond Gaza, of course, the focus remains on Cairo, where negotiators are trying to close gaps between Hamas and Israel that the U.S. says are bridgeable in order to bring the fighting in Gaza to an end.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Brown reporting from Jerusalem. Russia is celebrating Victory Day today. Moscow's Red Square held the annual military parade. The events mark victory over Nazi Germany.
Сегодня мы видим, как правду о Второй мировой войне пытаются исказить.
In a speech, President Vladimir Putin said the West is diminishing the Soviet Union's role in the Second World War. Russia's war in Ukraine began more than 2 years ago. Putin admitted to the crowd that Russia is living through a difficult period. He says he will do everything to avoid global confrontation. Stormy Daniels is scheduled to be back on the witness stand today in New York. The adult film star has been testifying at Donald Trump's hush money trial. Daniels went into great detail on Tuesday about her alleged sexual encounter with the former president and the money she says she was paid for her silence. Her day on the stand today is expected to begin with questioning from Trump's lawyers. Grieving members of a Toronto family are wondering why they never got a call when their father died. They say nobody reached out to them as next of kin after he died of natural causes, but instead, they learned about his death when they tried to visit their father and found police had sealed the door. Angelina King has their story.
This is my favorite picture of him.
That is the best one.
Siblings Christine and James Taylor flip through photos of their dad Douglas, reminiscing about his empathy and haunted by how his body waited unclaimed in a morgue for 11 days because Toronto police didn't tell them Douglas had died.
It's just a disrespect to him.
A police report shows officers had James and Christine listed as next of kin along with their cell phone numbers. Officers searched those numbers on internal databases and an online business directory, but then it appears they stopped trying to find them and never even called.
It's just incredibly unfair.
The family learned Douglas died when James went to check on him. He found his apartment door with a police seal on it.
This is wrong.
Former Toronto Mayor John Sewell is now a coordinator of the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition. He says even the lack of a phone call from police is troubling.
I mean, come on, we've got to have better behavior from the police when somebody's died.
The Taylors sent police a letter saying they could pursue legal action. Because of that, the service says it can't comment. The family sent the same letter to Wood Green Community Services, which runs the apartment where Douglas died, because the police report says officers tried to find next of kin information, but the office file was empty. Wood Green says its files are electronic and provided the info before officers left the building. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
British Columbia's Premier David Eby says his province has identified multiple sophisticated cybersecurity incidents involving government networks. But so far, he says, it appears no sensitive information has been compromised. Investigators are still trying to determine exactly what information could have been accessed. And Eby says the government will provide updates and be as transparent as it can be throughout the process. Last week, all provincial employees got an email ordering them to immediately change their passwords. Ottawa is hosting the first ever Air Accessibility Summit. It begins this hour. CBC News has reported on numerous incidents involving passengers with disabilities and airlines. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, the goal of the meeting is to find short and long-term solutions.
I would like to know that my wheelchair will come off of the plane in one piece.
Every time Spring Hawes boards an airplane, the BC Disability Advocate says she expects something to go wrong.
Whether it's a small thing like being treated with, disrespect, or a big thing like having my chair broken or being...
Hawes says she's experienced it all multiple times, and she's far from alone.
Airlines not only need to do and be held accountable, they actually need to do a lot better.
Kamal Khera is the Federal Minister of Persons with Disabilities. She and Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez are bringing airline representatives and disability advocates together in Ottawa today for the first summit of its kind.
To really have frank discussions about what we can do.
We're looking for concrete actions after this.
If the airlines don't follow through, Rodriguez says the federal government is considering consequences.
There can be all kinds of ways to doing it. There could be penalties.
John Graddick teaches aviation management at McGill University. He says he'd rather see the airlines forced to publicly report how they handle incidents involving passengers with disabilities.
The whole point is to change the airline's behavior, not to pay money.
The ministers are expected to unveil more details after the summit, but the first step is to start a conversation many call long overdue. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Toronto police say they were called to Drake's Bridle Path mansion again yesterday. Someone tried to gain access to the property. They say that person was apprehended under the Mental Health Act. Police are still asking for the public to come forward with information about a shooting near Drake's house on Tuesday. That incident left a security guard with serious injuries. Italy is preparing to deploy almost 200 soldiers across that country. They're not defending its border. They're hunting wild boar. The country's $12 billion prosciutto and sausage industry is in danger. Megan Williams tells us more from Rome.
They devour vineyards, feast on urban food waste, and even leap on people in swimming pools. Cinghiali, or wild boars, more than 1 million of them roaming Italy due to shrinking habitat and strict limits on hunting. Now, more worrisome, they've become super spreaders of African swine fever. The highly contagious virus doesn't harm humans, but has killed more than half the world's pig population.
Prosciutto di Parma.
And that poses a major problem to a country renowned for pork products like prosciutto.
Non ha visto grandi soluzioni negli anni passati.
Which is why Agricultural Minister Francesco Lollobrigida introduced a decree this week to send 177 soldiers to hunt the boars, aiming to reduce the population by 80%. The northern region of Lombardia has already called more than 30,000 pigs to stop the virus spread. And Parma is being hit by foreign import bans on its prosciutto. In April, Canada became the latest country to stop some of the products coming in. Pork producers here welcome the army offensive, but critics say the government is opting for a high-profile populist approach to the problem to cover up for the fact that it failed to act sooner by helping farmers erect fences. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Quite a sound effect, that pig. Sorry if we scared you waking up this morning. It is 8:10 a.m. You're listening to CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thanks for joining us. You're on 89.3, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. We're the warm spot in the province. It's 11 degrees already in downtown Winnipeg. Beautiful sunshine, and Abby's in with the forecast. If you haven't yet heard it, it is worth hearing, so stay tuned. That's coming up in just a minute. This half hour on the show, we have our regular monthly interview with Premier Wab Kinew, who's live in studio with us. We'll ask him today about other provinces and whether or not he thinks they're getting ahead of Manitoba in their bid for new sources of clean energy. Also, the Premier has said that the new cancer care facility will be built with money from a settlement with Big Tobacco. But did he speak too soon? We're going to ask him. Stay tuned. That's coming up this half hour. Right now, Heather Wells has news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg courtroom is expected to hear testimony today about the search for the remains of the 4 people killed by Jeremy Skibicki. He is on trial for 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women in 2022. We're going to hear a bit of what was said in court yesterday. And protesters who set up camp at the University of Manitoba say they will continue their advocacy for Gaza even after the encampment ends. The 3-day demonstration at the U of M Quad is set to wrap up later today. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby, the temperatures always spike at this time of day, but not quite like this. This is awesome.
Yeah, you just that leap from like 7, 8 all the way to 11 at this moment is something we should applaud. Yeah, I'll say that. Clear in the city and sunny outside. Today promises to be another beautiful day. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for us in the city. The temperature is expected to soar to a delightful high of 24 degrees. Now, as we transition into the evening period, we should expect the skies to become partly cloudy, and then the winds will be shifting directions to the northwest, and that may bring some breeze overnight, and that would just be more like a refreshing type. A sneak peek into tomorrow, Friday, I'll tell you, shipping to continue with this pleasant trend, so I'll tell you, enjoy it. And while you enjoy the sunshine, also protect yourself.
Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything up in traffic, Corey?
Just I want to keep an eye out for that turkey still. Eastbound South Perimeter just before Fermor. Got a call from Matthew maybe about 45 minutes or so ago. Shortly after, though, did get a call from Chris that he saw what maybe the remains of a turkey in that area as well. So maybe a problem, may not. Keep an eye out for that. Otherwise,
there's no good way to report that.
Just
move on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Lorenzo also called northbound Pembina just before Waller. You lose the curb lane and the bike lane as well to construction. So just keep left to get around that if you're biking. I guess you just got to kind of take a side road or maybe just pop onto the sidewalk for a hot second. So if you see anything else, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
8:13 is the time right now, and Premier Wapkanu is here for our monthly interview. Good morning, Premier.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for being with us. I want to start with serious matters because it's on the minds of, many people in our province right now. I want to know what you would like to say to Manitobans as the trial of serial killer Jeremy Skibicki continues and his defense argues not criminally responsible. What would you like to say as leader of this province?
Well, I always want to begin on this with compassion for the families and our deepest sympathies for their loss and for the terrible experience that they've been put through over the past few years. Our government is working to support them through this trial period. We know it's very difficult to hear the details, and I'd say the same note of sensitivity for your listeners. When we hear these sorts of reports, it's tough. I don't think any of us, look forward to these kind of updates, but I would just say that I think for the public to have confidence in the administration of justice, that's a paramount value for us in our democracy and in our society. So it is necessary that we have, the Crown making this case and that the defense have the opportunity to do their thing. But I really just want to indicate compassion to the families, a tone of understanding for the average person who finds these terrible details very disturbing in, as far as what's being alleged and or agreed to, as the case may be in various instances. But what I would also want to say is dignity for these women who were murdered. I think that we need to remember that each of these 4 women have and continue to inhabit a space of dignity. They are deserving of respect. They're deserving of value, and we should always remember that. And while the public court process plays out and the media is providing the updates, if we think about what the dignity of these women means to us, I do think that it means in other areas, such as how we respond to vulnerable people in our society, such as how we respond to homelessness, addictions, the ongoing social challenges that we face in our province. I think that keeping in mind the dignity of these 4 women who are taken away from their families and taken away from our community as a province of Manitoba, I do think it calls on us to act, and it is a very, very strong and stark reminder that we need to do a lot more to help people in vulnerable positions in Manitoba.
Thank you for that. 8:16, Premier Wapkanu is here for our monthly interview. So if you're a regular listener, you know we move from topic to topic. I want to ask you next for clarity around something that you recently said. So you announced Manitoba will receive hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe more, from a settlement with tobacco companies that will pay for the new cancer care building. You did say, though, you would find a way to fund that project either way. So it's not about the funding. But no other party involved in the lawsuit with Big Tobacco has talked about the settlement being imminent. What gives you the confidence that this will indeed be settled, and where did you get that information from?
Well, the biggest thing for me is just transparency. I think there's often situations where governments get access to new resources or sources of funds, and there's not often transparency about that. But to me, this is such an important public issue when we talk about cancer. I think we all have a story. We all have a personal experience, a parent, a child, tragically, friends, family, so many folks that we've missed out on spending time with. And I just think it's really important that Manitobans have confidence that when it comes to an issue as sacrosanct as and important as that there is going to be transparency and that there is going to be a commitment that we're going to use resources to fight cancer. And of course, a state-of-the-art facility where the best practitioners and physicians and researchers and nurses can work together to care for you, I think is an important initiative that we were already committed to, but we might be able to advance in new ways. But also talking about prevention, talking about how do we prevent the next generation from smoking? How do we have better diets? How do we ensure that future generations can be cancer-free? You know, these are things that I think it's important to start the conversation on. And I've been carefully watching, I guess, the letters to the editor in the newspaper of record, the commentary on your show and across other media, where Manitobans are engaging with the conversation of how do we make our society one where there's less and less cancer as we go forward into the future.
And while I appreciate that, and if you heard in the news this morning, you're being applauded by some for the transparency, but the question is, where's the information from? Because other provinces, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, said they can't comment because of ongoing litigation. And you made a very specific comment saying it's with the federal government right now. That was your quote. Can you elaborate on what you meant when you said that the settlement is, quote, with the federal government right now?
Well, I think that there's a process that's playing out, and I'm going to respect the nature of that process. But my commitment is to the people of Manitoba. And I think it's important for Manitobans when we come to decision points on big public policy issues, whether it's on the justice matter that we just spoke about, whether it's on cancer care that we're talking about now, we always have certain parameters of what we can talk about and when we can engage on those topics. But on an issue like this one, I don't think it's something that we should just expect Manitobans to hear about and then to have an immediate understanding on.
I'm just trying to understand, though, because the feds, I don't think, were involved in the court case at all.
Well, I want there to be time for the average Manitoban to engage with this topic and to talk about what is the mix of state-of-the-art cancer treatment. What are the prevention resources?
Can you tell us, though, if you spoke too soon on the funding? I'm just...
No.
You didn't.
No.
So you believe this funding is coming by the end of the year?
I'm talking about an important public policy issue to the people of Manitoba because I want you to have the opportunity to engage with it substantively. And I want you to have confidence that your government is being transparent in not only figuring out how we're going to allocate future resources, but also in engaging in a good faith manner with the experts in cancer care, with the voices in community, with the average person who's been impacted by this terrible illness. And if we can come together and have a substantive discussion, which I think is happening right now, people are talking about what the right mix is around prevention, treatment, clinician researchers, other important initiatives. To me, that's an important part of how we get to not only a best-in-class, world-class cancer treatment program where Manitobans can say we get the best cancer treatment here in the province, but also Manitobans can say it's one that reflects us and reflects our values.
I appreciate all of what you're saying. You're not really answering my question around the lawsuit
as
itself.
I said, we always have parameters around what we can discuss and when, but I think the most important thing is that as the leader of your government, I want there to be transparency and an important opportunity for Manitobans to engage with how do we want cancer care to look in the future of our province, and how do we want to allocate between the various priorities of preventing various forms of cancer in the future, treating those folks with the best-in-class treatment who are on their cancer journeys today, and then supporting other community and healthcare initiatives that help us to alleviate the needs of further, cancer patients in the future.
We're going to leave it there. Obviously, we'll move to another topic here, Premier. The NDP government in BC recently announced a new plan to generate more electricity. They're partnering with the private sector. So many provinces have these kinds of plans now. I know that you put Manitoba's new energy plan on the shelf, promising a new one. When are we going to see Manitoba's new energy policy? Can you commit to a timeline?
It's in development right now. In terms of public release later this year. But I think you can have confidence that that document is in very good shape right now. And basically what it does, it says, here's the roadmap towards a net zero future for Manitoba in a way that's affordable for the average person, in a way that creates good paying blue collar, middle class jobs for the average person out there. And that's really Manitoba's advantage. You go to Saskatchewan and Alberta and you talk about green jobs in those provinces, sometimes you're asking people to engage in an active imagination. But when you talk about green jobs here in Manitoba, we've been doing that for 50 years. Everybody in this province knows somebody who works for Manitoba Hydro. And so for us, again, one of the challenges we face is that the previous government and really their party for 50 years hasn't built a single megawatt of electricity in our province.
So when you look at BC,
now we need to build.
So when you look at BC and how they're looking to build, they're looking to privatize. I know in the past you said you're not open to that, but would you be open to private partnerships?
I'm just giggling because I spent some time with Premier David Eby on the weekend, and I think he would. I don't think he'd agree with the characterization that they're privatizing.
Well, they've opened bidding
Hydro.
they've opened bidding to solar farms to increase their capacity. That's what they've done to private investors to increase their capacity.
Yeah, but that's not privatization.
Well, that it's private companies. Like we have private companies already involved in wind and solar production right here.
Yeah.
Wind production here. St. Leon Farm, of course, is an example of it. So I'm wondering, sort of, would you look at partnerships like that to increase our capacity here? What are you looking at specifically?
I think partnering with Indigenous nations is going to be an important part of the path forward. To the substance of your question, hydro is going to always be a public utility, to the point that I was making about BC's approach as well. It's always going to be public Manitoba Hydro. We're always going to have a public utility because that's the best way to ensure that your bills remain affordable. But at the same time, when we're talking about building our economy, we're creating jobs. I think if we can move the needle on economic reconciliation and bring in Indigenous nations as partners in some of this development, then I think that's a good way to continue spreading the wealth and the economic activity in the fairest way possible, which is by creating jobs and creating opportunity for people to work.
Is there enough of a sense of urgency around this? If our plan's not coming out till the end of the year, then we need to go forward with actual builds, and other provinces are already coming ahead with putting out bids for companies to be building to increase capacity. So what's your sense of that, whether or not we're in a competitive position?
We do feel a sense of urgency, but that's why I've mentioned that the PCs have not built a single megawatt of electricity in Manitoba for 50 years. That's what puts us behind the 8 ball. So again, 7 months into the administration, we are standing up a clean electricity plan, one that I think is going to cement Manitoba's advantage to be a leader in the low carbon economy. And we're going to do it in a way that creates good jobs.
8:25 the time right now. Hydro is still leaderless. When will a new CEO be named?
Well, we got to take the time to get it right. And so there is a search process underway that's being led by the board. We've got a great board led by Ben Graham, who's also the CEO of Blue Cross here in Manitoba, somebody with extensive experience, not just in the world of finance and being a senior executive, but he also ran Manitoba Public Insurance. He knows our regulatory landscape.
Should Manitobans be concerned that no one's steering the ship right now? Do you have a timeline on that?
No, you have a great interim CEO right there. Hal Turner came up from within Manitoba Hydro. He is somebody who's well respected by the people who work at Hydro because he came from their ranks. So we actually have great leadership with the board, with the executive at Hydro right now. And when we talk about making the choice for a CEO that's going to lead us through the construction of these new generating projects, it's going to lead to the creation of more good jobs, it's going to lead to partnerships with Indigenous nations, it's important that we take the time to get this right. And I think, the pace that we're moving at with selecting a new CEO via the board is one that balances the need to get it right while also moving forward in an expeditious fashion.
8:26, Wap Canoe, the Premier of Manitoba, in studio live with us here on CBC. It is National Nurses Week. Nurses just signing a new contract. What do you want to say to them about it?
Well, I again, we're talking about parameters that we can talk about, can't talk about. I have to respect the Manitoba Nurses Union process. They're going through the process of ratifying their agreement. But what I would say is, first of all, thank you so much for everything you've done as nurses, going back years through the cuts and closures, through the pandemic, through the challenges that we see in healthcare today. I'm going to respect the process of the tentative agreement. But what I would say, and I think, the head of the Nurses Union and other leaders and I have spoken about this, we share some priorities of what we want to do around fixing healthcare. Improving things for the patient, reducing wait times, those are important goals that we're going to deliver on. And the way that we do that is by ensuring that we move towards an end to mandatory overtime, that we have better nurse-to-patient ratios in the different parts of our healthcare system. And the way we accomplish that is by hiring more staff and bringing people back to the bedside and bringing people back from the nursing agencies. And so I think that in the near future, we should have some very good tools to be able to accomplish that. So in addition to saying thank you, I just want to indicate to nurses, the help is coming. We're working hard on this, and we think that we're going to be able to turn the corner, bring more people to the bedside, and then, of course, allow you to do the thing that you have stepped up time and time again to do so well, which is care for people. And to me, saying thanks and to backing up that thanks with the action of bringing you more resources at the bedside is how we want to celebrate National Nursing Week.
In our remaining time here, I just want to switch gears completely and ask you about Mother's Day on Sunday. I mean, you made your mom part of your announcement when you became Premier of this province. How are you like your mom?
How am I like my mom?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask what we're going to do for Mother's Day. You know what? My mom is such a kind-hearted, hardworking, and beautiful person. I don't think I could ever hope to compare myself to the high standard that she set. But if I can claim any measure of the goodwill that she shows to a person on a daily basis, of like the generosity and altruism that she shows, then I think, I'd be I'd be in good standing. So thanks, Mom. Thanks, Lisa, my wife, and thanks to all the moms out there.
What would your mom say are your best and worst qualities?
Oh, geez. Well,
our moms always know.
Well, my mom is a classic mom, so like the list of positive things she wants to say about me is probably going to be pretty long. And obviously, she's also going to be very sensitive and, maybe say something about, take it easy and take a break now and then. I don't know, But the main thing is she's such a huge and wonderful part of our lives. We're very lucky to live in effectively a multi-generational household, which means that not only do I get to see my mom all the time, but she also is super active with our kids and, with with my wife Lisa and our whole household. So we're just really, really lucky. And so by way of saying thanks to my mom, I want to say thanks to all moms out there.
What are you doing on Sunday?
I will be hanging out with the kiddos while Lisa gets to go to Thermia.
Nice. Thank you, Premier.
Thanks so much, Marcy.
That is the Premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, with our regular monthly interview. For all the stories that we mentioned, by the way, and we questioned the Premier about, you can always go to our website for more details at cbc.ca/Manitoba. I want to mention briefly that Radio Noon has their call-in today. So the call-in conversation between 12:30 and 1 o'clock this afternoon. Host Laurie Hoogstraten is, come on, pop in, Laurie. We got 15 seconds. I don't know what your question is, so pop on the mic here. I was going to fill in for you, but I realized I don't actually know what you're going to be asking about there. So what's the question today?
Well, the question is, what's a bike mayor? Because Winnipeg has a new bike mayor, and we're going to find out what that job is and how everything bicycle can now be asked to her. She's going to answer all your questions about biking and also about her new job as Bike Mayor of Winnipeg.
So if you can't call in live with Laurie, remember you can leave a message now at 788-3797. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 11 degrees, brilliant sunshine out there, and very little wind. It's going to be gorgeous today, sunny with a high of 24. A Winnipeg courtroom is expected to hear testimony today about the search for the remains of the 4 people killed by Jeremy Skibicki. He is on trial for 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women in 2022. He has admitted to the killings, but his lawyers argue he's not criminally responsible due to mental illness. Skibicki says in a police interrogation video played at the trial yesterday, he killed the women because it was something God called him to do. Skibicki is charged in the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and an unidentified woman Indigenous leaders have named Mushkode Bishake Ikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman. Well, Premier Wab Kinew's comments suggesting a possible settlement with tobacco companies the provinces are suing came as a surprise to someone who has been tracking the ongoing legal saga. Manitoba and other provinces sued major tobacco companies to recover the costs of providing healthcare services for tobacco-related illness. Cynthia Callard is with Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada. She was surprised to hear the Premier comment because most governments have said very little.
The Premier's done us a real service. I think that it's something that needs to be talked about. I think the fact that it's been in secret should be repugnant to policymaking in Canada. There's huge policy implications for dealing with this industry that's caused so much harm.
CBC has reached out to some other provinces about a possible settlement. Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan responded saying they can't comment because of ongoing litigation. A former inmate is suing the province for negligence for the way it uses solitary confinement. James Darren Audi has applied for the suit to become a class action. He wants to represent all current and former Manitoba inmates who opt in, specifically those who had a serious mental illness, who were youths, or spent more than 15 consecutive days in solitary. The suit claims the province has maintained an enormously harmful system of solitary confinement and says it is used without due process or oversight. None of the allegations have been proven in court. A statement of defense has not yet been filed. Recreational drug users are being warned to watch out for a deadly mixture that's killing an increasing number of Manitobans. It is a designer drug known as DAG. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner says it's been involved in 18 overdose deaths since January. Jeff Elder is a peer lead volunteer at the Manitoba Harm Reduction Network. He has lost friends to DAG. He describes it as an extremely potent combination of fentanyl laced with anxiety medications.
Because there's no overdose antidote, there's really no way of preventing or treating an overdose other than calling 911 and sending them to the hospital.
Elder advises users to guard against the effects of DAG by going slow and taking smaller doses. The pro-Palestine encampment at the University of Manitoba is set to come down later today. But people there say they plan to continue their protest in other ways. The demonstrators are demanding the U of M disclose and cut ties to companies and institutions implicated in Israel's invasion of Gaza. Encampment spokesperson Victoria Romero says that getting the school to agree to that is just their first step.
If they're willing to sit down and accept the demands, that would really signal that the university cares about human rights. They identify that there is a human rights crisis going on, a genocide going on, and that they're standing on the right side of history. And with that, we would hope that the administration would be willing to work with us on issues going forward.
The encampment was set up amid similar protests in campuses across Canada and in the U.S. And a grass fire the size of 3 football fields in Transcona last night forced trains to stop as crews put it out. It happened just after 7 near Day and Gun Road. The Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service used a drone to find hot spots and special wildland firefighting equipment. That fire was out in about an hour. Despite recent rain, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service says conditions in Winnipeg remain dry, and high winds increase the chance of grass fires. So far, there is no cause for this particular fire, but the Fire Paramedic Service says most grass fires are caused by humans. You can find more news coming up throughout the day by heading to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I just want to mention that our contest to win tickets to the Brothers Landreth show tonight is now closed. Tons of emails in to win at cbc.ca. We will contact the winners after the show and we'll choose randomly 2 winners. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away. Corey, traffic.
Really the only kind of maybe major issue is that potential wild turkey eastbound south perimeter just before Fermor might be there. Also got a tip that it might also be dead.
Okay.
Is that
is it affecting traffic? It's
yeah. It's there's someone had to swerve around a turkey a while back, so it might be there still.
Okay, thank you.
Just saying what I'm hearing. It's
Awkward.
tough. It's a tough one thing to report.
Morning.
Okay, it's
Tough
not
gig
always.
this morning.
I know it's usually a very prestigious gig on traffic, but
Abby,
sometimes.
save us.
Corey, you just have to do that.
Sorry to be a buzzkill team.
Anyway, the southern part of the province will be seeing lots of sunshine today. We're going to be hitting highs of between 21 and 24. Lots of sunshine and some breeze. The north will see sun and clouds, showers later in the morning, and a risk of thunderstorm. Thompson is going to be at 18, and Churchill is hitting a high of 8.
It's like an episode of WKRP here this morning.
He just had that one job.
They didn't teach me how to report on turkeys, okay, in journalism school.
Take
this
care,
is new territory.
everyone. Thank you for joining us so much. Thanks to our overall team of associate producers that work on all the local programming here at CBC. Thanks to our leaders in unit, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez. And big thanks to our live team, Heather Wells and Aaron Broman and Megan Ketcherson in our news department this morning. And our live team, Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, and Brad Lillies. Take care. Be well. Stay safe out there. And The Currents coming up next.